Mira Business FM, your daily guide to the markets, money, and more.
It's Mira Business FM. It's the morning drive. So finance professionals across the Middle East are looking beyond salaries with growing demand for careers focused on sustainability, social impact and innovation. There's a new ACCA survey out. ACCA is the Association for Chartered Certified Accountants. It's a global survey and it shows growing demand for jobs that deliver those three things, alongside rising interest in AI and entrepreneurship. But there are concerns around pay, workplace pressure, and the future of hiring is also shaping the conversation. So here to discuss the findings, Kush Ahuja is the head of Middle East and Eurasia at ACCA. Welcome, Kush. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Tim.
Good to have you back. Let me start with a really simple question for you, or seemingly a simple question. What's the big takeaway from this year's survey?
Tim, this is one of the largest surveys globally with more than 11,000 respondents, 570 from the Middle East, which is a very good representation. And I think that the finance profession in the Middle East is undergoing a real shift. What you've talked about, people are looking to align with values, their personal values and the corporate values, which is why they're looking at 67% of the people wanting future finance jobs that have some level of an ESG impact or wanting to contribute towards social impact. Now, this survey is not just about this. There's a lot that we have covered. Like you mentioned, entrepreneurial ambitions, also AI-related skills. We've talked about employer values, mental health. We've talked about the impact of changing demographics. How many generations are there at the workplace today? And we've talked about workplace and lifestyle patterns. So finance professionals, in short, want to see a clearer outcome and purpose in their work rather than being seen only as a function or a cog in the wheel.
It's interesting this. Does this surprise you? Because, I mean, historically, ESG, environmental, social and governance metrics were very often treated as kind of PR exercises. It was kind of a nod, wasn't it? Less so now, I admit, but it kind of was that way. So was it a surprise to you that there was such an emphasis on, I want to make a difference? Because that's really what people are saying.
Well, the way that people have started thinking about these things has changed. And that is evident through the surveys that we carry out. And if you look at what our finance professionals doing today in terms of the impact that they are having, we see green bonds or green sukuks being issued out here in the Middle East. Now, the finance professionals over there, they're not just calculating interest rates and cash flows. They're also reporting then on auditing carbon reductions. They're also talking about justifying to global investors that they've got the supply chain ethics in place. So ESG has become a part of the workplace. It's not something that you do outside the workplace. It's integrated into the work. And as more and more people see that it's important, it's obviously more important to Generation Z, and we can see that through the survey.
I guess it makes sense. I mean, the survey shows that over a third of regional accountants are already tackling climate and social impact issues within their roles. But I read that and I thought, well, how does that look on a day-to-day level? What does that actually, translate to?
So when I come to the workplace, I'm not just coming there to look at doing a particular role or, let's say, delivering on a particular report. The generation today is more conscious that what is the impact that this is having overall on the company, the direction that company is taking. So when I look at the respondents, an overwhelming 3/4 of them have talked about social and human rights as a factor for the factor that do they even want to work for that employer if this is not a part of the employer values? 58% of the respondents have actually talked about environmental concerns, saying that we want to make sure that our employer is environmentally savvy. And this goes up to 82% when you look at only Generation Z, that they want to look at the organization's social reputation. So in today's day and age, it's not just the employer who's interviewing the candidates. It's the candidates who are also looking at what does the employer stand for, what are some of their values, what are they espousing, does this align with who I am as a person? And we frequently see many top tier graduates and professionals, they're willing to take a small cut on their salary but go for the right employer. So while there's a lot of information out on candidates, there's even more out on companies. And I think companies will need to stand up and take notice of that if they want to continue attracting the right set of people.
Well, it's such a change, isn't it? That we are now turning around and saying, "Do I even want to work for you?
Yeah.
You may have offered me a job, but I'm not sure about you." I mean, that's that kind of sideways glance thing. But it tells a real story, because if you look at the younger generation, you quoted a figure there from the report. 79% of respondents say an employer's track record on human rights and social impact dictates whether they'll even apply for a job. That's huge. But that number shoots up to 90% for Generation Z, the young generation of financial professionals that are coming in. So I suppose if you have a poor ESG transparency record, are you going to have trouble attracting talent at all? I mean, that's got to be an issue for companies.
Oh, yes. And I think that if I look at the Middle East, I would say that employers are particularly savvy about this.
Okay.
And I think that the ones that I talk to, the progressive ones, they recognize this, that if they want to maintain the right workforce, they want to attract the right talent, they've got to up their game on some of these factors as well. And they are doing it.
Right.
You see that happening. They also know that because when we look at a report like this, the Global Talent Trends by ACCA, the purpose of the report is such that we want to inform the employers that this is what is important to Generation Z. You've got to adapt to it. So I think that the Middle East is changing. It's one of the most forward-looking places, but I also think that there's a requirement not to get complacent. So when we're looking at ESG, there's also new things always on the horizon. For instance, the usage of AI, and it's there in the report. But I've worked here for the last decade, long enough to understand that employers are quick to adapt in the region.
Well, I think that's true. But you have to be nimble, don't you now? Nimbler than ever. And you have to be able to strike a balance, because I'm interested in how do finance professionals balance the kind of the mathematics of profitability, because that's rigid, right? You've got to make money, got to make more than you spend. That's kind of the thing. But how do you balance that with a kind of abstract metric of social value creation? Because that's kind of over there somewhere. I can't really touch that.
Well, it's no longer abstract. You started putting some numbers and methodology to it.
Okay.
And like I gave the example earlier, when you've got green bonds and you've got to show your carbon footprint or your supply chain ethics down the line, you've got to be able to convince investors that if I've taken green bonds money, then I'm actually being able to deliver on the fact that this money is being used in the right way. Now, these are all tangible reporting factors. There's also compliance, risk, etc., that finance professionals do. So it's not a profession that is going to talk only about numbers any longer. The finance profession is actually much, much wider. There's performance management, audit, ethics, so on and so forth. And people who go through qualifications like ACCA, they get trained on all of these factors. So when they have to look at any challenge, issue, or opportunity, let's say so many of the people heading towards entrepreneurship, these are the kind of things that help people prepare and report and look at issues from a more comprehensive perspective rather than only one line, which is what is my profit or what is the number.
Things have changed, haven't they? The cliched view of the accountant sitting quietly in the back room, crunching the numbers, kind of gone. That's like kind of a dead image now. There's a real sense of, I think, purpose. Probably purpose over pure profit in regional finance. Do you think that finance professionals are increasingly prioritizing purpose-driven careers? Is that a change you're seeing in this?
Oh, for sure. I think, and that the entire survey actually reflects that they are looking at that purpose, because it's not just about I go to do my job. It's about, do the values of the employer, does the purpose of the employer align with mine? Because when I'm looking at the purpose, it's also about creating that personal legacy. See, people are not just about going and doing a job and earning the money. They're spending so much time. They want that work to carry meaning for themselves. They want to feel fulfilled. And that's how the workplace has evolved today. Now, with the use of technology, you can do so much more. And all of these things are impacting how people are behaving in the workplace. And especially Generation Z are very, very conscious about ensuring that what they do is meaningful.
How do finance teams contribute to sustainability and social impact goals?
Well, if you look at finance teams, they are some of the most enmeshed teams across the entire organization, because that's where the money rests, that's where the reporting rests. So they're in a very good position actually to influence how the money is invested, what is the direction taken by various corporates. And if the finance professional is somebody who's passionate about ESG, they're going to make sure that some of the decisions that are taken also reflect the values of ESG within the business perspective. See, the businesses today are also having to be savvy about the fact that they want to create long-term value. And when you want to create long-term value, you've got to carry the right values yourself. It's not just about making a quick buck.
I like that. There's a tagline in there somewhere. Long-term value for... We'll work on it. We'll come back to that one. Do you know, there's an interesting paradox in the ACCA data. On one hand, confidence in developing AI skills is incredibly high. It's around about 80%.
Yes.
On the other hand, exactly half the workforce is worried about AI job disruption.
That's right.
Familiar story, right? And the over 50% are deeply suspicious of companies using AI algorithms to filter resumes and handle hiring. So if professionals are confident in the tool, why are they terrified of the machine that handles the talent pipeline?
So we can break this up into two parts, Tim. There is one is how do I use AI at my workplace? So like you said, about 80% of the people are confident about using AI-based tools at their workplace. They want to upskill for that. They're looking to their employers that help us upskill. We want to use more of this at our workplace. There's also this balance of apprehension and enthusiasm. The apprehension comes from the fact that, let's say an analyst sees that the data cleansing or a report can be generated in a few seconds and something that I needed to do in a few hours. So what is my job going to look like in the future when this thing happens? So as more and more AI comes in, I think that the jobs are going to transform. Now, there's an action here for employers. Because if you want to retain good quality talent and you're seeing that they're good adopters of AI and they're having this apprehension, you need to address these fears proactively. You need to be able to go out and talk about the future impact of technology through clear communication. You've got to talk about reassurance about career pathways, that how this technology is going to come in the workplace. And that's the best way to both retain and leverage talent. So jobs are going to change. They've always changed. This is not new, but you've got to adapt. Now, there's another part to your question was about hiring using AI.
Yeah, people. I mean, that worries people.
It does. And I think it's a fair thing to say that AI hiring practices in finance do spark some concern. So there's concern about the fairness of AI and the algorithms, but there's also skepticism at both staff and at executive levels regarding the loss of human nuance.
Yes.
There is concern about potential algorithmic bias, but there's also the point that so much data can be looked at, because for each job today, there are hundreds and hundreds of applicants. So how do companies go through something like this?
Well, this is a familiar story. We talk to HR professionals quite a lot.
Yeah.
And the biggest complaint, I think it's fair to say at the moment, is we get so many resumes, CVs coming in, but people will use a scattergun approach. Just apply for anything.
Yeah.
Just think, well, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
But you're rejected because you shouldn't even be applying for that role in the first place because you don't have the language skills or whatever. The prerequisites are not there to do that. The one thing about AI is it can immediately filter that out. And that's not fair. If you're asking for somebody that speaks English, Urdu, and Arabic, and somebody comes in as a French speaker, it's probably not the right application process. for that
You're
person.
quite right. If you think about what we spoke earlier, that while I'm looking to be value driven and I'm expecting all of these things from the employer, I think it's better to have a targeted and a considered approach
Sure.
when you're making your applications as well. So 51% of the finance professionals, they're uncomfortable with the use of AI hiring algorithms. And 40% actually say they're comfortable with its use. Now, as a part of the research that we were conducting, we also carried out some roundtables. And at those roundtables, somebody described how they are using AI-related tools for recruitment, like filtering CVs, running skill assessments, and managing job ads. And yet, when it came down to making the final decision, they wanted human intervention and somebody to actually talk to the candidate, discuss with them, and see how they are. So that human nuance is not entirely lost in this process. It's a way to manage the applications, not a way to make a decision. The decision making is still going to lie with the human.
It's about wading through that deluge, isn't it, of applications. Why are more than half of board level members joining their junior staff, though, in expressing doubts about relying on AI for recruitment? Do you think that's a sign that maybe the region isn't adapting as quickly as it should to changing workforce expectations?
Well, I think that the region is adapting fantastically in terms of the uptake of AI.
Okay.
And the usage of these tools is only expanding. More and more companies. The Middle East, if you think about it, is becoming a hub for global expansion for various corporates. And AI usage over here is encouraged. And most companies are looking to use these tools. Now, there is a need for understanding and leveraging these tools in the right manner. And that is something that people are skeptical about. And over a period of time, things will settle in. It's if I were to give an analogy over here, when Microsoft Excel came in, and I'm talking about now 25, 26 years ago.
You're going back in time now?
I'm going back in time now. There was a time when trial balances, balance sheets, and things that finance professionals can relate to were all done on paper.
Yeah.
And that is when Excel came in. And then after Excel, then your CRMs came in. And now after CRMs, you have got your AI to deal with. So it's an evolutionary process, not to be scared of, but to adapt your skill set to be able to leverage it to the best possible.
I think that's a good point to make, isn't it? Why be afraid of something? Why not just get on the train? Which is what companies are trying to encourage. Just a reminder, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. More content like this is always available from Mira Business FM. Here's something that I think is really important that comes out in your survey, Kush. 72% of Middle East respondents harbour ambitions to exit corporate life, start their own businesses, that kind of entrepreneurial thing. Regional female professionals display some of the highest entrepreneurial drive globally, 62%. Is the corporate grind failing to satisfy the modern financial professional's appetite for innovation?
Well, first of all, I think this is very positive data. It needs a lot of confidence and gumption to start on an entrepreneurial journey.
For sure.
So people are clearly feeling more confident that this is a good place to innovate and go on that entrepreneurial journey. And it's not just entrepreneurs, even people who are working, they want to be entrepreneurs. They want to be entrepreneurial at their jobs.
We all want a side hustle as well, don't we? We always think, I could do that at the weekend.
It would be lovely to have a side hustle, but I think that there's a lot more commitment to entrepreneurship than one meets the eye.
Okay.
Now, our survey results show that the region is actually ahead of global numbers. And there are several factors that contribute to this. Now, finance professionals, they're obviously a very good fit. Now, you've talked about the numbers, but when you're talking about finance professionals, they're acquiring skills like tax, legal, regulatory, business management, finance, so forth. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that a professional finance person feels more comfortable taking the entrepreneurial jump, so to say. Because the finance professional qualifications like ACCA, they are giving you that exposure to the essential building blocks. Now, when we come to employers, you need to be able to give people that space to innovate and do new stuff at the workplace. And lastly, when I see the Middle East, why is the Middle East doing actually better in terms of entrepreneurial ambition? Right? Why are the numbers higher here than globally? is because the ecosystem is geared towards supporting. There's massive support for small and medium enterprises, startups, and digital innovation. And finance professionals, they see that their skill sets are helpful in this kind of a scenario. So that's why they're taking this jump.
Okay. So how can regional enterprises then structure maybe internally innovation hubs to keep these kinds of minds, these entrepreneurial minds inside the company instead of losing them to startups or to, for people to head on and do their own thing?
I think this is where your younger companies and companies with a more progressive mindset have the edge because they're willing to take risk. They're willing to go with new ideas. They're willing to experiment. And that is exactly what an entrepreneur wants. So innovation is not just about coming up with a new business idea all the time. An entrepreneur could be somebody who comes up with a new and a better way of doing things, who's willing to challenge the status quo. And that's innovation at your workplace. Innovation does not necessarily mean always that I'm going to run off and come up with a new business idea. But I could innovate at my workplace to do things in a better way. And as long as companies are willing to feed that fuel,
as long as you're willing to empower people. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's potential. So we've got desire for innovation, impact, sky high. The day-to-day reality in the office seems more, a little bit tenser, because your report flags 64% of Middle East finance professionals are highly dissatisfied with their current pay. 58% state work pressures that are actively damaging their well-being. 55% plan to walk out of the door of their current organization. Again, quite stark figures, and potentially if you just took that in a silo, you'd think, well, that's a potential crisis there. That's a serious message.
When you look at data this way, it does tend to seem alarming.
Is that me not being a little bit too literal, not analytical?
Yeah, you need to look behind the essence of the data as to what is happening at the workplace, and there are multiple factors.
Okay.
So there's multiple generations at the workplace. And you're also looking at technology coming in, which we have just talked. We have talked about entrepreneurial ambitions coming in at the workplace. We talked about work becoming more value-based rather than me feeling like just a cog in this wheel without understanding where the corporate is headed. In addition to this, you've also got to look at things which the survey covers, like mental health.
Yeah.
That what's my, how am I feeling about my work? Am I feeling too pressured? And these are all points that if these can be addressed, I don't think that retaining talent is a challenge. But it's a question that can you provide some of these things? Can you understand? And that's essentially what an employer can take away from this survey, is that how do I perform on all of these parameters, or is my workforce at risk?
Well, I mean, if nearly 60% of our finance talent is suffering from mental health strain due to workplace pressure, perhaps workplace culture in some way, what operational changes should be implemented to keep people?
So, Tim, there's no one size fits all. You've got to understand that mental health varies from one person to another. It's about recognizing that, yes, there is mental health challenges and workplace issues in the first place. So that recognition itself is the most important thing. Are you willing to recognize that, yes, this is something that we need to work on? Nearly 1/6 of the people who here indicate that, yes, I do have mental health issues because of workplace pressures. But how many of them do feel that comfort to be able to go and talk about it in their workplace? So as long as we're willing to talk about it, I think we can get on the path to addressing it. Now, the path to addressing it can vary from one corporate to another. There's no one right way of doing it. But I think the first and foremost step is to recognize it, to talk about it, and say that, yes, this is something that we want to work towards.
I'm aware that we're using, or have been using, a lot of figures this morning, and if you're listening thinking, I've got to keep track of this, I like how you're using fractions rather than percentages as well. I like the sixth there. There's something else I wanted to bring up, and you've mentioned this a few times in different ways, and that's the kind of demographic changes that we've seen, the generational changes, because you could have potentially up to 6 different generations now working in the same finance department. It's a little bit of a stretch, but it's possible, right? Yet nearly half of your respondents say cross-generational collaboration is a massive challenge. So there's a gap to be bridged, a workflow gap between a Gen Z kind of data native and a legacy baby boomer executive, maybe, the boss at the top.
Very true, very true. And this sixth generation piece is especially there in larger teams.
Yeah.
And companies that have been around for a longer period of time.
Yep.
Because we're all working longer, and generations, that generational change is becoming smaller. So every 15 years or 12 years, there's a generational change that's coming. And this tension, it's important to understand it's not personal, it's structural. The elder generations often, they seem to be favoring more structured system. Can I double check this? Can I have somebody look at formal documentation? Whereas when you look at Generation Z and younger people, the millennials, they're pushing for automation. They want to use communication using Teams and Slack and WhatsApp, and their communication can be very different. So a person for maybe a Generation Z is just going to write a K to you instead of the OKAY and use generative AI shortcuts.
That drives me insane.
There's another point to this is harks back to our well-being part as well.
Right.
Now, elder generations, and we used to look at physical office presence and long hours at the work desk as a thumb rule that a person is committed and is working hard. When you look at the new generation, they're looking at asynchronous work. They're looking to be online at different points in time when they think they're most productive. They want strict mental health boundaries, that how many hours am I going to work? It's not that I'm going to sit for 16 hours to impress anyone. And they're looking at output and quality of output rather than just evidence that I've been sitting at a desk. And so this disrupts. There's a third point over here, which is very important to understand, is you look at the region, and we talked about technology and its adoption and AI adoption. Now, the region's push for digital transformation means that younger and more tech-savvy professionals are rising into strategic and higher positions much faster. Now, all of these things, they play against each other in the workplace, and which is why collaboration has been cited as a challenge by most people. So this is what lies behind the numbers. Since you said, let's look at the fabric and not just the percentages. There's too many of them going around.
Well, there are. I mean, and I appreciate that, but it's so important this because what really interested me about this survey was it's kind of the person behind the finance professional. Because I think we very often put the finance professional you're in the accountant box. And, we use the cliche there. And I think that they're slightly unfair. Just listening to you there, is cross-generation collaboration becoming more difficult? Or is it just that we survey about it and we talk about it more? Is it actually a little bit easier than we're making it out to be?
So sometimes these things don't come to the fore till the time that you actually survey them.
Yeah.
They may exist, but when you start putting some numbers, you realize the magnitude of the impact. And that is where both professionals as well as corporates can actually sit up and recognize that, hey, is this something that's happening at my workplace that I didn't take cognizance of earlier? So this does happen at all workplaces, but are you cognizant that it's happening? Are you being proactive about addressing? How can I help address some of these things? How can I make the workplace better for both the elder generation, the middle generation, and the younger generation who are all coming to the workplace at the same time? Can I adopt some new practices that we all can adapt to make things? Can I come back to hybrid work instead of full-time work? What is the preference that a majority of my people would be happier with? How can I move productivity? These are the questions that this data will actually help you to look at. So it's not about providing an answer, it's about asking the question.
Do you think Gen Z kind of heading back to the office? Do you think is that something you see?
So Gen Z, they value the flexibility.
They don't mind having it as the base, but they want to be able to move in and out.
Yes, they are also very hyper-aware. They're very, very aware, and I give them credit for that. They know that earlier career growth requires mentorship, and they want to be able to go to the workplace to get that mentorship. They want to be able to go and network. They know that they need that organic workplace visibility that online calls are not going to be able to replace. And yet, they do not want to get structured into a 5-day work week where you turn up at work every day. They want to be able to have that flexibility to do this when it is the best time for them. So I think that they're increasingly asking for a more hybrid workplace. And that, I think, is the way to go.
We're over time, so just one final question. What does the future finance professional workforce look like in this region, Kush?
So the workforce over here, Tim, I think is going to be very purpose-driven. We've looked at that.
Yeah.
They're going to be clear on their value, what they are worth. They will be certainly looking to make some level of impact. They're going to be technology natives. And I think that corporates would do well to be ready to use their skills, experience. And these people are going to be very willing to use their judgment to make a real difference to their organizations and to wider society.
Kush Ahuja is the head of Middle East and Eurasia at ACCA. That is the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. And the survey is it out? Is it released?
It's
Where
out
can
on our
people find
website.
it?
It's
on
called the
your
Global
website.
Talent Trends, and encourage everybody to go through it. It's really a great read.
There's a lot to learn from it, that's for sure. It's been good to talk to you, Kush. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Tim.
Appreciate it. This is Mira Business FM. Lots more business interviews and conversations coming soon. And remember, we stream 24/7 on YouTube, on TuneIn, and Streamer, and more.
Mira Business FM. Mira Business FM. The sound of success.
It's the morning drive. Welcome. This is Mira Business FM. Abu Dhabi's rent freeze policies continuing to shape conversations across the property market. Landlords and tenants are having to adjust to a new landscape. Now, we don't have a timeline on how long this new directive will be in effect. It's a temporary measure, but it's here now. So, joining us, Ben Crompton is managing partner at Crompton Partners. We're going to talk renewals and new lease agreements and hopefully break down what the policy means for the market going forwards. Ben, good to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
You're very welcome. So landlords want to maximise yields. Tenants want price stability. The rent freeze kind of sits in the middle. Any tensions at the moment on the ground as leases are getting renewed? How are things?
Yeah, I mean the action that's been taken in freezing rents is obviously very pro tenant.
Yeah.
I would say more than the previous situation. The previous situation was a 5% rent cap, and now because of the hardship that tenants been facing with rents going up an awful lot, 50% over 3 years over the last 3 years in some cases. So the government has acted, obviously due to regional uncertainty, people suffering with job insecurity. Some people have had wage cuts, but with these rent rises, so they've acted to freeze these rents. And obviously, it's early days yet, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some tension between landlords who want to raise rent, even where they're thinking that they want to raise it to market price, where it is where they think it should be, and tenants who now rightly say, well, the rent's frozen. I'm just going to pay the rent that I was paying last year.
Well, market price and where landlords think prices should be don't always correlate, I suppose. Well, what's been the response so far? And I get that it's early days, but what are landlords telling you?
So landlords probably fall into two categories. One category where the landlords were looking at a 5% increase this year, and then they're probably going to take the view, well, 5%, it's not too much. I'm happy to renew at what it was last year. And then there's a second category of landlords who believe that their rent is well below market price, and that if they were able to rent it at market price, they'd get a significant uplift. And those landlords are probably going to be the ones who will be angling, more to find workarounds, for this, because the way it's being restricted is through the Tawthiq system. It's our version of Ijari. So now when you generate a new Tawthiq, a new Ijari, you can only generate it at the rental amount that it was last rented at. So, that stops landlords, raising the rent, mechanically, if you say so. Landlords can't generate a rent contract for more, so they're probably the ones who feel particularly aggrieved might be looking at workarounds for it.
Are you seeing more discussions, renegotiating terms between landlords and tenants?
There's a lot of discussions, and I think tenants are feeling very empowered by this law, and rightly so. Landlords are probably, trying to do, and we've definitely seen the case where some landlords are perhaps trying to renew for smaller time periods, say like a 3-month, renewal or a 6-month renewal, because they believe that, and it's been expressed that this rent freeze is temporary. And tenants probably, sticking to their guns and saying, well, actually, this, the law is clear. I have a right to this rent freeze, and I'm going to take advantage of it.
Let's look at the potential impact, Ben. Under a strict rent cap policy, an existing tenant has a pretty big incentive, financial incentive, to stay put, even if their space requirements change or whatever. Conversely, landlords feel that they're missing out on potentially missing out on the broader property boom because they can't adjust legacy rents, to match who can match the speed of the markets here in the UAE. How do you see this affecting overall inventory and market liquidity in prime communities in the capital?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see, what happens, because, we're probably going to have some units coming onto the market that have been, let's say rented, below market rent, and they're going to be advertised below market rent. So you'll see people paying market rent who will actually say, well, hold on, that's a below market rent because it can only be rented at the amount that it was last rented at. Maybe I'm going to move into that unit. We might see some landlords, if they are only going to get below market rent, take those units off the market and say, actually, I'm going to wait because I don't want to lock myself in for a year at this lower rent. I'm going to wait, see what happens next because it has been expressed to be a temporary freeze, and hopefully the next iteration of this, I'll be able to release it at market rent. So yeah, we might see a lot of, we'll definitely see a lot of tenants staying put, but there might also be real opportunities for tenants who are paying close to market rent now to actually move to pay significantly below market rent, take advantage of rent freeze in that way.
Okay. What are the most common, I was going to say, tactics is probably the right word, actually, or maybe legal loopholes that landlords might try to use to evict legacy tenants so that they can reset the property to current market rates?
Well, so we should be clear that there's no change to the eviction rules in Abu Dhabi. So the eviction rules in Abu
Right.
Dhabi are very, let's say, landlord friendly. You just need to give your tenant 2 months notice before the end of their contract and ask them to leave for any or no reason,
Right.
which I know is very different to Dubai.
Yeah.
But now, under these new rules, if you do evict your legacy tenant, you can only rent it for what that legacy tenant was paying. So, there is no benefit right now to landlords evicting those tenants because, they're locked in at that same rent. So any tenant who's received, eviction, a non-renewal notice, should be going back to their landlord now and saying, well, listen, if you were thinking of, non-renewing me so that you could raise the rent, you can't do that anymore. So keep me, if you kick me out, you're just going to have a vacancy period. You're going to have to, repaint and, redo the unit, and then take time to rent it out. Keep me in for another year. I'm going to pay you the same rent as the next guy. So, be interesting to see how landlords react to that if they do continue with these evictions, or they take a view that I'd rather have it rented than not at all.
Is there a hidden risk that landlords might reduce spend on maintenance or, I don't know, asset upgrades on cap properties because their yields restricted?
Certainly, that is the risk if this turns out to be longer term than we believe it to be. The big risk about serious rent caps, and this is a rent freeze, which is is quite unusual in itself. The big risk about that is, landlords stop upgrading, they stop maintaining because there's no benefit to them. They don't get additional rent for those additional expenditures. But we understand that it's been expressed very clearly that this is temporary, so we don't believe it'll have a long-term effect on the market in that way.
So right now, more than ever, probably, the flexibility in that landlord-tenant relationship, it's more important than ever.
Yeah, I think there'll be some very interesting discussions to be had between tenants and landlords now. Really say all the power was with the landlords in the past because the landlord could just non-renew. They can still non-renew, but the tenant, has now, got the backing of this law behind them. So, they have, a lot more power in that discussion now. So, where in the past the landlord would have just gone, listen, you're out, I can get higher rent somewhere else. Now, I think definitely they're going to be talking more about how to keep tenants, in those units, because the landlord gets no benefit from kicking them out.
Just a reminder, all of our interviews or highlights of interviews from Mira Business FM are on YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn and more. Ben, what about newcomers or residents forced to sign completely new lease agreements? Because the rent freeze protects existing contracts, the pressures entirely shifted onto the new lease market, right? So if you're a corporate professional, say you relocate to Abu Dhabi this month, what kind of premium are you paying on an uncapped kind of a raw contract?
So if you're moving into a unit that has been rented in the past, that unit's rent is locked at that past rent.
Right.
So it's no different. The only uncapped part of the market now is new builds. So it's never been rented before.
Right.
So those are uncapped. So, the let's say the projects handing over now in Abu Dhabi, those are uncapped. Everything else has some form of cap on it based on the last rent, which was put into, our version of the Ijari system, which is called Tawfiq. So as people coming into Abu Dhabi, brand new, and actually all tenants kind of moving around, their first question is going to be, what was this last rented at? What was the last Tawfiq? Because that's basically the rent that they will be paying. I mean, that's non-negotiable.
Okay. How wide is the gap right now between a capped renewal rate and a fresh open market lease in a premium area?
It will very much depend on on the past behavior of the landlord. Did they, because let's say the last 3 years rents have been going up.
Mm.
Did the landlord, apply the 5% cap to each one of those years? In which case, that's probably going to be somewhere like 25% below market rate now, just as a for instance.
Okay.
Or did they non-renew and get a new tenant in and lease it at, much closer to the market rent? Or has it been vacated recently and a new tenant come in? So, it's really very unclear. You don't know what this unit was, last rented at. So if something has been renewed for a long time, or maybe, it was rented in 2020 during COVID at very low rates, and the landlord has been very good and just raised it 5%, every year since then. But rents maybe have doubled since then in some areas. It could still be very below market. And some other areas, could be very close to market. There's going to be a huge range.
Ben, I just wanted to clarify this directive, if you like. This is across Abu Dhabi, but there are a couple of exclusions. Reem Island, ADGM, is that right? What actually is excluded from this freeze?
Yeah, that's correct. So in Abu Dhabi we have two legal frameworks in operation. I believe it's the same in Dubai. You have DIFC, which is also different.
Sure.
So in Abu Dhabi we have the ADGM, which covers Mira Island and Reem Island.
Right.
So those do not have the rent freeze in place. They have a rent cap, which is rents can only be renewed at 5% increase. But they are
Okay.
not subject to the rent freeze. The rent freeze applies to everywhere else in Abu Dhabi.
Okay. So, to what extent are landlords maybe front loading their asking prices on new leases so they can build a financial buffer against the policy, depending on how long it lasts, of course?
I mean, a lot of people think that landlords have, great power in terms of, the rents they can ask for, and in a way, the rents they can ask for, they do. But in the end, people are only going to pay market rent for, for a property. Landlords can't front end rent. And obviously their rent's capped now. It's only the brand new units where they might be able to, ask for above market rent. But if they ask for above market rent, no one's going to take the unit. And obviously we're in a situation now where we're not having as many people coming into Abu Dhabi as we were having, let's say, in January, February. Hiring for some companies still on pause. People are still waiting to come in. Once this regional uncertainty resolves itself. So, I don't think we're going to see many landlords, really trying to build a buffer for themselves, because it's just not possible. If you've got a vacant unit, you've got to be, very commercial about the rent that you're asking for.
Yeah, I guess, this is very kind of theoretical because we don't know how long this cap will be in place. But if you're a corporate entity and you're managing staff housing allowances or I don't know, commercial footprints in Abu Dhabi, this environment needs some pretty strategic forecasting. So what would you suggest is a medium to long-term playbook for navigating the market, but with the information that you have to hand?
I mean, that's a really interesting question. My general advice, to people would be, listen, this is definitely going to be temporary.
Right.
Everything that we've heard coming out of the regulator is that this is a stopgap whilst they put something more long term in place to better balance the relationship between landlords and tenants, which had become unbalanced. So, I wouldn't recommend anyone do any long-term strategic planning about this. However, if you did need to, then, this is going to be very research based because, there's going to be some, if you were a corporate entity and let's say you were looking for office space or something like that, going to be very research based. I would, talk to everyone on the market because there's going to be some stuff that's underpriced. There's
Mm.
going to be some really real deals out there where the owner of that property for whatever reason hasn't raised it, as much as some others, because then it's locked at that level that it was last rented at. So if you can find something that was last rented cheaply, if you take the time and have a real look around and talk to as many people as you can, then you can get in on that, at a very low level. So it's going to be, if you were going to be strategic about this, spend a lot of time researching and finding out, exactly what's on the market and what it was last rented at.
Quite right. Do you do diligence, I suppose? I mean, there's a paradox here as well.
Yeah.
Do you think this as a policy could drive a surge in the sales market? Because, I mean, potentially you could see frustrated tenants thinking, paying a mortgage is more predictable than facing the market.
I mean, it'll be interesting how the tenants, think about this. Perhaps they were thinking about buying because, rents have gone up a lot, and so you do want that predictability of a mortgage payment as opposed to your rent going up, every year. But obviously now that's changed. Now tenants are feeling that there is a lot of predictability in the market. I'm now renewing at the same amount I was renewing last time.
Mm.
So, I think it might put a few tenants, plans, to buy on pause because they realize that they've got, another year at least at the same rent, to plan for that kind of thing. What it might do, is give investors a second thought, a pause. If you were thinking about buying to invest, because now, if you are buying a unit, you need to know, and be very clear about what it's currently rented at, because you can't simply buy a unit, give that tenant, a notice of non-renewal and rent it at the market rate under this current rent freeze. So you're going to have to be very clear if you're an investor and you're buying for yield, it's going to be present yield, and you're going to need to look very carefully at what the tenant's buying now because you don't have that flexibility anymore.
Based on your discussions with I don't know, regulators, with legal entities, with the clients that you have, and this is very much a pro-tenant move, do you see any adjustments or potential sunset clauses being introduced into the rent cap framework? Because there is a little bit of additional pressure on landlords now.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, even in the announcement that was made by ADREC, it says short-term, temporary. It uses two, words to emphasize, that this is not their long-term solution to this problem.
Mm.
Right? They're looking at multiple other solutions. They have a preferred one in mind, where they, because the whole point is you've got to balance landlord and tenant rights in this market. If they become skewed, the one is unhappy. And the problem that we have in the UAE is population flexibility that they don't have anywhere else in the world. When we generate jobs, people come into the UAE, into Abu Dhabi, into Dubai, into all the Emirates, and so it drives housing demand up very, very quickly.
Mm.
Whereas, even if you have jobs in the UK population growth is 1%, 2% a year. It's predictable. It's low. You can manage that without having very severe, regulations around, rental increases. That's not the case in the UAE. So the governments need to be very proactive. They need to introduce frameworks to make sure that, tenants' lives are bearable, that they don't have to move every single year because, rents are going up, that their renewals are manageable. They're not, taking 50%, from one year to the next, that they can keep, living near the schools and where they work and that kind of thing. So, there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into it, that's been now forced by the fact that, the real estate market, at least until February was booming.
How does Abu Dhabi's approach compare with other markets in the UAE? Because the UAE has very distinct demarcation lines, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And so Dubai's had the rent calculator, for an incredibly long time, and I think that works very well for them. And the good thing about the rent calculator is, it makes renewals quite manageable for tenants, even in a booming market. For example, I think in the rent calculator, if you're renting 40% below, you can only raise the rent 20%. So, tenants are not, dragged along with these booming markets, but it also allows landlords to increase rent, incrementally towards market rent. And obviously, if the unit's vacated, then I believe that the landlord can rent it at market rent. Sharjah's got an interesting system where if you rent, you can't raise the rent for 3 years, but after that you can raise it as much as you like to market rate, and then you can raise it once every 2 years. So in that way, it allows tenants to have 3 years of predictability, predictable rents, but there is that opportunity for landlords then after that to just move it towards market rent, and then once again every 2 years. So the Emirates deal with it in different ways, but they're all looking to balance this relationship between landlords and tenants, giving the landlords the opportunity to get market rent, but also, protecting the tenants from these huge rent hikes and having to move all the time.
Uh, Let me ask you a really broad question, Ben. And I'm just interested in how you view the market, and I'm talking about the market, Abu Dhabi first, but the wider UAE as well. But what trends are you eyeing at the moment that landlords and tenants should be watching over the next few months?
The next few months, I think, will be really instructive about where the UAE market is heading. Obviously, there's the regional uncertainty starting in March, and everyone's really now looking at, okay, what's happening with sales transactions, what's happening with rents. They're going up, they're going down. How many units are we getting? Summer is the big leasing time for the UAE. A lot of people move to the UAE in summer because they need to get their kids into school. So our leasing team is the busiest period of the year. Probably like the 4 summer months, we do more than half of our business. So it'll be very interesting to look at what rents are doing. Now, obviously, they're not going to be doing anything in Abu Dhabi because they're frozen, but it'd be really, really interesting to look at what occupancy is looking like.
Yeah.
Are these vacant units being taken up? Are people still moving to the UAE in the same way and in the same numbers that they were? Is the economy bringing people in? Because if it is, and we'll see this, probably by August, September. If it is bringing people in, then that's a great sign for the future health of the real estate market in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Because then that means the economy is doing well. People are coming in, they're taking up units. That means property prices will continue to be stable, if not appreciate in that long term. So it's really we here at Crompton Partners are really keeping an eye on those leasing numbers, because that will be instructive about where the market's going to head towards the end of this year.
Final question for you, two parts, and it goes to the stability in the market. Do you think this is a policy, this rent freeze is a policy that could encourage longer term stability in Abu Dhabi's rental market, in that it's it's very proactive in nature? And also, do you expect demand in Abu Dhabi's rental market to remain pretty strong through the rest of the year?
So the first part of your question is I think, I like the fact that the regulator's been proactive.
Yeah.
And it's a good sign that that movement has happened now. And obviously, talking to the regulator, they're incredibly proactive in terms of reaching out to people in the market like myself. Talking to them, they are incredibly focused on this issue and on balancing the landlord and tenant rights, and they're really aware of what's going on in the market. Which is really positive for us. And I think, to your point, it will improve stability in the market long term. Not this rent freeze, but what comes next.
Mm.
And so, it's good to know that they're really focused on that. So that's really great. And I've completely forgotten what your second point was.
No, it's the strength of the market. What you're looking at for
Yes.
the rest of the year in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. So we do expect the Abu Dhabi economy to be very resilient.
Mm.
In terms, if we compare it to the Dubai economy, so the things that have been hit, hardest, aviation, tourism, F&B, hospitality, the port system. Abu Dhabi does depend on those, but not to the extent that Dubai does. And what we're seeing now coming out of Abu Dhabi government and Dubai government as well is huge infrastructure projects being launched. We had the Sphere announced recently, obviously the pipeline, Etihad Rail. We're expecting these infrastructure projects to really, really take off. A huge amount of spending by ADNOC as well. We expect the Abu Dhabi government to inject a lot of capital into the market and the economy to really benefit from that, and that to happen soon, because I think the UAE government understands that there's a lot of pressure on the economy at the moment. The drivers that have been relied on in the past have been badly affected by airspace closure and sentiment around visiting the UAE. So we expect huge investment in at least Abu Dhabi's economy, and that should really boost the market. So we're very positive. Sadly, all real estate agents are always very positive about the market, but I think you have good reason to be very positive about the Abu Dhabi economy going forwards. Economy means more jobs. Jobs means more people. More people means rents and sale prices continue in a positive vein.
There's nothing wrong with a bit of positivity, Ben. Ben Crompton is a managing partner at Crompton Partners. Thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Don't forget, like, follow, and subscribe for more interviews like this from Mira Business FM.
Mira Business FM. The sound of success. Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.
This is Mira Business FM. It's the morning drive, Annie. It's Friday, and it's time to talk to the. I don't know. I don't have an adjective that's lofty enough for this. It's the guru that is Jeff Rhodes is back. I feel like we've not seen you for weeks.
Well,
It's about
you
3
haven't
weeks.
seen me probably for 10 days or so because last week you were swanning off on Eid holiday and I didn't know what to do with myself. It was Friday morning and couldn't function because I hadn't been to the Mira studios.
Is that what it was?
It was a bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. You were just at a loss,
Missed it.
really.
No, I
yeah.
missed it. I missed and of course it's been a while since the big game. Big games.
I'm not sure that we should talk about that. For anybody unaware, Jeff is a supporter of the Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. I am a supporter of the West Ham United Football Club. And on the last day of the season, we shouldn't really be talking, should we? Because your lot stayed up and my lot got relegated.
Yeah.
So I should feel aggrieved.
And you deserve to stay up, actually. You won
Kind
3-0.
of.
We nicked a 1-0 victory.
Yeah, but not good enough early in the season. You see, and
well, that's it.
You get what's
I
dished
tell you
out.
what, though, I think. I'm sorry, we're talking about football, everyone, but
No, please.
I think you made a good decision in sticking with your manager because you did come. You recovered in the second half of the season very well. If you'd have had that kind of form earlier on, you would have been easily mid-table. So I think you did a good thing. Was it with Mr. Nuno
Espiritu Gomez. Yeah, no, I think he's a good guy.
Yeah.
I think hopefully that'll turn out to be a
I'm
good
gonna
decision.
I think I'll have a little flutter on you coming straight back.
You can cross your fingers. And then you came in and said, and I'm not going to let you forget this now, because I had forgotten this, but you owe me dinner, apparently.
I do, yeah.
I'd completely forgotten, Jeff.
Then
And
we
that
had
was,
the reverse bet.
I know. It's, so this is stay up or stay down, but the other way round. So, where are we going?
Your choice.
Okay. Are we talking fast food or are we talking slightly more fine dining?
I think you deserve more fine dining.
Just to help with the...
I think so, yeah.
Get
ease
rid
the
of the
pain.
tears. Yeah, I know. Well, then we'll do that. We'll sort out a date. We should film it, and it's probably more interesting than this podcast. But there you are. I've got to say to you, I read your reports. I look at what gold is doing, and it's a little bit choppy at the moment. But to be honest, not a great deal to say.
It hasn't gone anywhere. It's really stuck. And if you look at it was stuck between 4,500 and 4,700. Now it's stuck between 4,400 and 4,600. Everything is in the 400. Everything's in the 4,000s.
Yep.
Really, and when you look at the support that's clear on the charts is 4,400. Okay, resistance on the charts clearly 4,800.
Yeah.
Now, when we break outside of either end of that range, that will trigger a move of $300 in my view. It's like pent up. We're going nowhere.
Yeah.
I still believe it's going to be higher, but the longer the conflict in the Gulf continues, the more damage is being done globally to the fabric of the global economy, because the price of energy is making life difficult for everyone. And I think all of us, certainly me, I would have expected and hoped that this conflict would have been over by now. But it's just dragging on, and so that feeling of inertia, where no one really wants to make any investments because you're not sure where we're going. And so I think the sooner, we have a resolution, the better. When that happens, gold will rally. While it doesn't happen, there's this concern about interest rates.
Yes.
Now, the more I read about interest rates, what's creeping in is 50-50, we can see a rate hike. Start of the year, that was 0%
That's right.
possibility.
Yeah.
So now it's 50-50. Rate hike isn't really kind of on the menu for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem in itself. So we don't know what's going on, and investors are sitting on their hands, Tim.
Well, that's exactly what it is. Here's two things in your report yesterday, right? Supported by lower crude oil prices and a weaker dollar as investors assessed renewed expectations for a resolution in the conflict. So as it's been for weeks. That's one quote. You then quoted a guy at KCM Trade, Tim Waterer is his name, chief market analyst. Gold's gains are still very much at the mercy of oil, and the dollar only moves higher when they pull back, making it highly dependent on positive US-Iran headlines for sustained momentum. Again, as it's been for weeks recently, and I'm trying to read between the lines. You do your research, release a report every day, but it must be really difficult to fill the pages.
Well, it's difficult to have a view.
Yeah.
I think you have to have a belief in gold or not.
Yep.
And I do have that belief. And
That's an unwavering belief, Jeff.
It is an unwavering belief. And I do think eventually we are going to resume the rally that we've had over the last 4 years. And particularly central banks will come back in. But they have to deal with rising energy costs in their own country. And so we've seen in Turkey, for example, Turkey became a seller at one point over the last few months, but then brought it back. But central banks now are a little bit on both sides of the market. It's not a one-way bet. So it's not as bullish as we were at the start of the year. But I think we're going to have an extended period of sideways trading. I dread to think, because we've got the summer coming up.
Yeah.
And typically in the summer, you see markets treading water. So I've got a horrible feeling, Timothy, that we will be sitting here on the 1st of September saying, gold is 4,500, what's going on?
Yeah. And the prediction is still what for the end of the year? Depending on, there's so many things depending on.
Yeah, you're not going to let me forget it.
I'm not.
6,500.
I know, that was the original idea. But, when the rally comes, the rally will be hard.
It will.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it?
It will.
So we're really looking at an extended period of sideways trading lasting almost 9 months.
Yeah, and let's distill it down. It's all about interest rates.
Yes.
Really it is. And the fact that interest rates now are being talked up rather than down, I think is a problem. But this is not going to last. It won't last. And nobody can really live with oil prices just, sticking around $95 a barrel. Its fair value is probably $20 a barrel lower, around 75. And for me, gold's fair value, really, with what's been going on in the world, is really back at 5,600. So, I think we just have to be patient over the summer.
Just have to live
Watch
with
the World Cup, Tim.
Bargain price gold. Well, that's the next thing. And then there's so much going on. Do you know, I wanted to ask you one thing. Yeah. This is, you quoted you noted something that John Williams, he's the New York Federal Reserve chairman, that he said he doesn't expect upside risks to inflation caused by the war, the conflict in the Middle East, to be long-lasting. He has been reiterating that there's no need at this time to change US monetary policy.
Absolutely. However, at the start of the year, a lot of the chatter coming from Fed officials was actually about cutting rates.
Exactly.
So, and that's been the big change. If we stay around, look, interest rates here, I think, are fair, certainly in the US. When you look at the way the economy is doing, it's been moving along very nicely. Big day today, Tim. We have non-farm payrolls in the US, and that is closely watched by everyone, but particularly the Fed.
Yeah.
And so if we have a weaker number, then you're going to see the chat about rising interest rates will go away. If we have a strong employment report, that could really spark a move lower in gold, because it will trigger views that interest rates are in fact going up. So big number today, big number.
I mean, it's important, but there have been some better numbers of late.
Yes, but we don't want that. We want worse numbers, Tim. No, I don't mean that. I just, from my own perspective,
Sure.
I think it would be good to have clear guidance from the employment data, just where the US economy is. If it's in a good place, then I think, we'll see talk about rising interest rates and a lower gold price. So where could that lower gold price be? 4,100. Low of the year today is 4,100. Okay. Yeah, it could be. It wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world, but equally, if it's a poor result from the employment numbers today, I think gold back at looking at $5,000. So you could say the potential range from where we are now, which is 4,500, is equally up or down. So, Tim, when you're in this kind of situation, what do you resort to?
I do a contango.
I was thinking more about a toss of a coin.
Yeah, well, exactly. No, I wanted to get contango in because that's my favourite phrase. I'm going to come to that in a little while, actually. Okay. No, look, you're backed up by a guy at StoneX who you quoted, senior analyst Matt Simpson. We've not seen the end of the bull run. It's clearly time for a shakeout in general. So I anticipate choppy trade as we head into the year end, a slight upwards bias of around $5,000.
Yeah.
And that would seem
I think once we get back above $5,000, there'll be no stopping it.
Oh, well, that's then the gates are open then.
The gates are open then.
Yeah, exactly
so,
right.
Yeah. Look, the potential range from where we are now is 4,000 on downside, 5,000 on the upside. Yeah. We're trading 4,500 as we speak. So I think we're in for an interesting second half of the year. Hopefully, we're not talking about conflicts.
Yeah, I really wish. I'm looking forward to the time where we don't need to consider that as part of the equation.
Absolutely.
Silver. Let's move on there. You're a huge silver fan, self-admitted, of course. Kind of following gold's trading pattern.
It is, but its value versus gold is holding around 60 to 1, i.e. 1 ounce of gold will buy you 60 ounces of silver.
Yeah.
And that is below the mean. The mean over the last 25 years has been about 65 to 1. I think silver looks good. I think the fundamentals are in favor of silver. Fundamentals are in favor of copper as well.
Okay.
So rising copper prices equal rising silver prices as well. So I think silver is doing very well. It's holding in the mid-70s. I think it's only a matter of time before we've got 3 digits again. Honestly, I do. I'm kind of remain more bullish for silver than anything, simply because more silver is being consumed every year than is being produced. And things like AI apparently use a lot of silver. And the rise, look, one thing about rising oil prices, it puts a lot more emphasis on solar. Okay. What's used in solar? Silver.
Exactly right.
So I think the outlook for silver is very strong.
We should nod towards platinum and palladium as well.
Not good actually. They're really, I think they're suffering from the uncertainty about global economy. But there's not a lot to say. Palladium looks deeply dippy. Yeah. I haven't used that word for a while. But platinum's holding around sort of 18 to 1900. So Yeah, I think they'll be treading water a bit over the summer. But if we see a rising gold price, and certainly if we see a strong silver price, you'll see the PGMs follow higher.
Okay. Terminology of the day this week, contango. The market situation where the price for future forward delivery is greater than the spot price. That's the definition. But I just do a contango whenever you walk in the building. As you know, but I had never heard this before. This, I think, was this yesterday? It was yesterday. A double eagle.
Yeah. Oh, Tim.
That is, I've never come across that before. It's a gold coin. Face value, $20 US. It was issued as legal tender in the US many years ago, 1850 to 1932. 900 pure, fine gold content of 0.9675 troy ounces. I've never heard of that.
One of the iconic gold coins in the world. We all know about the sovereign.
Sure.
Well, the sovereign, the same kind of vintage, same generation. You had coins in the US. The original coin was an eagle.
Okay.
And a double eagle is twice as big.
Right.
So,
twice as big or twice as value?
It's
value
like,
and size.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So eagle was the original iconic gold coin in the US, followed by double eagle.
Why didn't I know that?
I remember back in 1981, Tim.
Yeah.
1985 it was. Gold was really, really low. It was around about $300 an ounce, and sterling was ridiculously weak. You know, it was below parity with the US dollar. Okay. So we all know, you know, and I actually had an entry on my credit card below 1. I had to think 99. I remember at that time that I thought, what am I going to do with my money? And I bought some double eagles. I was working in New York, and I bought some double eagles, and have them to this day.
I was going to say, you've still got them. How big are they?
A bit like, you know, the old half crown. You know,
okay. That was quite a thick coin.
That's quite, it was a bit like that, really. Wow. Yeah, so today we've got a lot of coins like Britannias are fantastic, but the US eagles, the eagles and double eagles, really, it's fantastic.
And what about in terms of value now?
Oh, well, against where they were then, I think the increase in value is, 6,000%. There's a bit of room there.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was a good few $1,000% back then. So look, gold was $300. Today it's $5,000.
Yeah.
So,
do the maths.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
I
did that with my wedding ring. I showed you that, and I had it weighed the other day, and I'm walking around with something I had no idea. Yeah. It doesn't occur to me about the value. But then this is your thing, isn't it? What's the mantra of the Jeff Rhodes thing? It's a store of value. When should I sell it? Don't sell it. Exactly. Never.
You can listen. There are times when you do need money.
Yes.
Okay. And the old-fashioned pawnbroker shops, were kind of a bit down the side alleys. But now it's quite normal for people to swap their gold in for a short period to raise money, and they can do that with banks. You can actually repo your gold. So, but you should never lose ownership. When you repo it, you lose ownership, then you get it back in, say, 6 months' time. But I think the fact that you can raise money using your gold means you should never, ever sell it.
Yeah, okay.
And, you had Keith Weiner here a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago now, talking about leasing gold.
Well, this is your new thing, isn't it? Yeah.
This is really making a dormant into a dynamic asset. Yeah. So even now, every day I see comments about gold non-yielding asset, gold non-yielding. That's why interest rates going up is bad for gold. Gold is a yielding asset. It's just the way you use it, and this is the thing that Monetary Metals has done. It's made the use of gold to generate its yield creation using gold.
Jeff Rhodes is the Managing Director, Business Development, Middle East and Asia for Monetary Metals, and gold leasing is now one of the many things you do.
It's the main thing.
It's the main thing, but there are other strings to your bow, Jeff. I do know that. It's always good to talk to you. Appreciate you coming in. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, and you, Tim.
Wherever you're joining us from or on, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more interviews like this from Mira Business FM.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio. Business FM, where business comes to talk.
This is the morning drive at Mira Business FM. Fuel prices are climbing. Health alerts back in the headlines, and tensions around the Strait of Hormuz are raising fresh concerns for airlines and, of course, global tourism. So how resilient is the travel industry heading into the second half of the year? This morning, we're joined by global tourism strategist Anita Menderata. She is special advisor to the Secretary General of UN Tourism. And hopefully we'll take a closer look at the risks, the recovery, and what travellers and businesses should expect next. Anita, thank you for joining us. I know it's early in the morning in Brazil where you are, but we appreciate you coming on.
Good morning, Tim. Thank you very much for the invitation.
You're very welcome. So the travel industry's shown some strong recovery momentum this year. We keep talking about this kind of revenge travel boom as well, but with fuel and health and airspace security flashing amber all at the same time, are we about to hit a hard ceiling on global tourism growth? Just how vulnerable is growth to rising fuel prices and this kind of broader economic uncertainty that we're all experiencing?
Indeed. And Tim, sadly, it's interesting that times of crisis is usually when it exposes how important tourism is to the global economy. I've never quite understood the term revenge travel because in many ways, coming out of the COVID crisis, revenge against whom? Mother Nature? It was about the world being shut down. And we're finding quite a sad case of deja vu as we now look at what's happening with the conflict in the Middle East, because we're finding distinctly, while it's a regional conflict geopolitically, it's having economic conflict impact around the world because of the Strait of Hormuz and its impact particularly on energy. But once again, it's demonstrating the vital role of travel and tourism, and especially the critical role of aviation in keeping the world connected, because those same aircraft that are taking travelers have cargo in the bellies most often. So it also impacts global trade as well, not just only travel and tourism. But to your question, it's very much demonstrating the strength of the industry because it's showing how strongly the industry is working with other vital parts of the global industry. So if we look at communications, transport, healthcare, all of those working with travel and tourism to ensure that people and goods do not stop moving, even when there are challenges, whether it's to jet fuel, to actual air corridors, whatever the challenge may be.
Maybe revenge travel as a phrase should be rebound travel. I'm not sure. We need to work on a better phraseology piece there. Look, Anita, when tensions flare around major maritime and economic corridors like the Strait of Hormuz, aviation is hit by a double whammy. So jet fuel prices spike straight away. Critical airspace corridors become compromised. So how are global airlines managing the cost and maybe even the time penalties of avoiding high-risk zones right now?
And I'm going to add in another element to that as well, Tim, and it's actually the currency of confidence, because no matter how much aircraft are provided, if people don't feel confident traveling, no one's getting on the aircraft. So it's also the impact on ultimately the confidence of travel as well. But when it comes to airlines, these are some of the finest leaders in the world, and that's one of the reasons why I'm in Brazil right now, because IATA, the International Air Transport Association, is actually having its AGM in the next 2 days. And that's where global CEOs are coming together to really discuss what in the world is happening with global aviation and what does the runway look like looking forward. These leaders are ultimately, they're trained to deal with crisis. They're trained to look at crisis, whether it's in air passage corridors, in jet fuel crisis like we're having at the moment, if they're healthcare issues. So they work very, very carefully to manage exactly how they utilize the air networks that they operate through, the aircraft that they utilize, the crew, and importantly, how do they manage customer loyalty, whether it's travelers or it's cargo customers as well. So that's been a very difficult time. We never anticipated this, in particular coming out of COVID. We never expected another globally impacting crisis for aviation, travel, and trade, but we're into it. And interestingly, we're seeing a lot of the expertise that was developed through the COVID crisis being reactivated now, because ultimately aviation is an ecosystem. It's airlines, aircraft manufacturers, airports, and air traffic control all having to work together to keep aviation moving. So it's a much stronger, much more tightly connected, interdependent global network now, which thankfully is able to navigate the challenges that we're dealing with, whether it's again the price of jet fuel, or the fact that there are significant blocks of the world where they simply can't travel through in terms of the air corridors. Russia's been locked out for the last several years. Pakistan is locked out to many airlines. And now we have the Middle East with Iran being completely blocked out. That has a significant impact on airlines in terms of how they navigate literally their ability to keep flying and keep passengers and cargo moving.
Well, let me ask you about that, because when carriers are forced to bypass historical flight paths due to whatever the reason, but in this case, regional friction, what does adding an extra hour or two flight time do to fuel burn, to crew rotations, and ultimately to, what we pay for tickets?
Exactly. I think there's multiple factors. You're adding on the element of time, because if you're having to navigate around a conflict zone, that's extra flying time, which means extra fuel. And that would be based on, even before the fuel price started to increase, that fuel price being around $70 per barrel. Now it's almost doubling, if not more, especially if we continue with the challenge in the Strait of Hormuz going into the end of the year. So you're adding on more time with more expensive jet fuel. And truth be told, Tim, some airlines are finding it's just not worth flying, because the cost that's being passed on to customers, the impact on the aviation infrastructure, which, as you said, is the aircraft, is the crew, is the passenger network as well. It's just too much. And either the airline and or the passengers simply cannot afford the cost. And in some cases don't want to take the actual challenge of adding on that extra time to keep the aircraft going. So they're having to make very significant economic decisions, not only the decisions around security, because it's about keeping aviation flying. And it's already an industry that has laser thin margins to begin with. And that's when, if you consider before the crisis even, jet fuel was about 30 to 35% of the operating cost of an aircraft. So 1/3 of the finances of an airline already went into jet fuel. If you double that, one really has to test the viability of keeping the aircraft in the air.
Exactly. I mean, airlines can only hedge fuel costs so much, and as you know, crude prices are climbing, heading into the peak travel season. So, a sudden wave of emergency fuel surcharges on those routes that are still viable on upcoming bookings. It's a very, very tough balance to keep, isn't it?
It is indeed. And to your point about hedging of fuel, you're absolutely right. That is predominantly a European practice. So many airlines have been able to hedge fuel in the European zone, but only to a point. It's only to a point later this year, because we also have the costs that airlines incur on the ground when it comes to the operational costs at airports. So it is impossible for this not to be passed on to passengers and to cargo customers. It's just the basic economics of keeping aviation moving and keeping the global economy moving in many ways.
Anita, let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you to ruminate. It's a hard question to answer, but major long-haul transit hubs, particularly here in the GCC, rely on seamless east-west connectivity. That's the point. So how insulated are these hubs from prolonged airspace volatility?
I have to confess, I have slight location envy with you, Tim, because you are in one of the most interesting and, dare I say, exciting places in the world.
Yeah.
Because you do also have some of the most remarkable leadership in the world in dealing with exactly what you're dealing with now. They're not necessarily insulated, but they have the acumen to deal with it. They have very strong, very visionary, interconnected leadership. So there is much more there. But importantly, Tim, where you are, it's not just the connectivity that goes through the GCC. It's also that air corridor. That's 30% of global travel already, even if aircraft aren't landing. So it's actually the significance of the entire airspace as well as the land. But as you know, being in Dubai, the GCC, particularly the UAE and Qatar and Saudi, are incredibly important in terms of aviation connectivity. And they brought that into their national strategies. So they're focused on making sure that aircraft keep moving, both for travel and trade.
Compounding things at the moment, Anita, we're seeing renewed health advisories around Ebola and the hantavirus. How sensitive is the tourism sector today to health concerns?
It is extremely. And again, this is a case of deja vu. When we look at Ebola, for instance, and I was living in Cape Town at the time, so very close to what was happening on the African continent. One of the challenges, Tim, when it comes to medical crisis is actually the contagion of fear and the way in which an area that is hit by a medical crisis, a healthcare crisis, it actually expands much wider in terms of the neighboring countries and the presumption of those being dangerous. So if we look at what's happening in the DRC right now, Central Africa, with the Ebola crisis, which is heartbreaking, and being able to contain that is vital. But sadly, the risk is that it's going to be about Africa having Ebola. And that's what happened last time in 2012, when we had the last crisis, 2012, 2014, because the presumption was that the Ebola zone, which was Northwest Africa, so we're looking at Sierra Leone really as one of the centers, the contagion effect went all the way down to South Africa. And South Africa is an 8-hour flying distance from the Ebola zone at the time. South Africa, Kenya, Botswana, Tanzania, all of those, especially safari-based destinations, they saw their tourism collapse for about 12, 18 months when it came to those traditional long-haul travelers, because the presumption was there is Ebola in Africa. You're talking about 54 countries where the Ebola zone was a much more limited, contained area. The risk is the same now, and especially when you add on top of that the world connecting for the FIFA World Cup, which is kicking off in 6 days' time across the US, Mexico, and Canada. This concern is that is it going to travel as well? There are 9 teams coming from the African continent into the World Cup. Is there going to be that contagion risk? But this is where, again, a lot of it is the contagion of fear and misinformation. So people being very clear on exactly where is the crisis happening, what is the impact, if any at all, and how is it being handled, is incredibly important. And that's where your role becomes incredibly important in being a messenger of the messages people need to understand to stay safe and keep moving.
The travel industry learned some very painful lessons about border friction, and really over the last decade. From a UN tourism perspective, how synchronized are global health and border agencies today compared to previous disruptions?
Indeed. This is a good example of where, again, crisis brings people together. When, for instance, COVID, the first signs of the COVID crisis were coming out, UN Tourism, which was UNWTO at the time, was very, very swift to immediately reach out to the WHO. It was a healthcare crisis first, which was creating a travel crisis, but it was healthcare first. And that's always the situation when it comes to UN Tourism and the tourism entities, whether they're government or private sector. It's being very clear on what is the actual cause and then what is the damage coming out of it. The tourism side is the collateral damage of a healthcare crisis. So tourism works extremely closely with government officials, with healthcare authorities, to be able to be very clear on what exactly is happening, what is being done, and how is that impacting travel, and then taking that information and working closely with the tourism industry to make very clear they understand how can they actually manage, if there is any risk. If there isn't, how do they make sure that they maintain momentum? And across the entire industry, how do we manage the messaging around it to ensure that it is accurate, it is fresh information, it's credible, and it's coming through credible sources, so that there's clarity of, again, where one needs to be cautious and where one can go without having to worry, and simply recognizing the fact that, again, we are an interconnected world. Naturally, crises will spread, but we can contain them as well. How do we work more effectively? So the answer to your question there is tourism works extremely closely with global healthcare to ensure that absolutely healthcare first, supported by tourism, but then supporting tourism economies around the world in a time of healthcare challenge.
I have a few more questions for you, Anita, but just one more on this point. Are you seeing any early data to suggest that consumers are pulling back on long-haul bookings out of health caution, or has the kind of traveller mindset shifted towards a risk tolerance? So to show that the industry is better at managing these disruptions without panic.
Indeed. I think quite honestly, at that point in time, it's actually about financial health than it is about physical health. There is a change in the way travelers are traveling this summer, very much because of the issue that we were talking about earlier, the jet fuel crisis and the impact that that is having on travel, whether it's the price of travel or the accessibility to travel because of aviation routes being changed. So that's really more the predominant focus, because importantly as well, where the Ebola crisis is happening right now, it's not a strong travel environment. The DRC is a conflict zone, so it's not a heavy trade or travel space. So this really is a summer of people being more conscious of the health care of their wallets than their physical bodies.
How structurally prepared do you think that the global hotel chains are, and the tour operators as well, when it comes to maintaining consumer trust and operational safety without compromising the real guest experience?
Indeed. I think the COVID period put in place, as you remember, very, very strong protocols around healthcare to keep people traveling, especially on the front line when it came to hotels. They were one of the first parts of the travel experience chain that really stepped up to make sure that people were able to engage in a hotel resort in an environment where there was going to be contact, but doing it in a way that was safe. So I think there's a lot, I'm confident that there's a high degree of confidence in the fact that the hotel industry, because of the learnings through COVID, because of the learnings especially of if you don't follow the protocols, what are the risks to the hotel being damaged from a business perspective, the hotel industry is absolutely aligned. And this is where hotels work closely with airlines, work closely with attractions and tourism authorities, because everyone is interconnected. The essence of travel is people moving. So it's making sure that everyone is moving safely from the airport, off the aircraft, into the hotel, to the attraction, wherever they may be going.
Anita, I'm going to take a very kind of local or at least Middle Eastern regional perspective now. If you're a travel agent or a corporate procurement officer handling a corporate travel budget, or you're an independent business owner and you depend on tourist footfall, you're kind of reading the tea leaves for the rest of the year at the moment. What would you put forward as a strategic playbook for the second half of the year, considering where we are now?
Indeed. I think where you are, and it's interesting because, as you know, 48 hours ago, Dubai just had their recent briefing from the Department of Economy and Tourism, which was the open briefing of, as you said, reading the tea leaves, but actually going to the tea fields and being very clear on exactly what is happening and what is planned ahead. So anyone in the industry and where you are, you're very blessed in that you have a very well-connected, high communication industry with exceptional leadership that knows the damage of ultimately forcing people in the industry to try to figure things out on themselves. You really are in one of the best case scenarios in the world. So for anyone in the industry, it's staying very, very close to what is coming out through, for instance, Dubai Economy and Tourism. But wherever one is in the region, staying close to the authorities, what is the official communication, especially when you look at the airline movements, airports, and then hotels, and then looking globally to see what the movements are of travelers. We ultimately are travelers ourselves, so we know that in difficult times, how our brains are wired to reconsider things is very important. But what's vital, Tim, as we've seen coming out of COVID, going through this current crisis now, people continue to travel. Travel is still growing. We're looking at about 4% per year. We're looking at 5 billion passengers around the world on aircraft, 1.5 billion travelers. Every region in the world is growing, barring sadly the Middle East, because we know that it'll lose probably about 1% to 2% of its growth rate because of the current conflict and how long that will last. but the world is still traveling. And it's quite remarkable to see how and where people are traveling. Those shifts, not if they are traveling. So we'll see much more regional travel in Europe because of what's happening with jet fuel. We're seeing the same in the APEC region, in ASEAN. Travelers ultimately working within the region, and it's allowing people to keep traveling. But also, and this is where again the GCC is very important, there is a huge amount of understanding and appreciation of travel in the GCC for the GCC. So it's the countries supporting one another and domestic travel to keep the tourism economy quite strong and buoyant, recognizing how important it is not only to the national economies and to jobs, but to national identity and simply pride of place. So once again, you're in a very special part of the world where the leadership recognizes it needs to lead very vocally, very clearly, and keeping all industry players aware of exactly what they need to know to be able to make good decisions around how they run their businesses, short term as well as into the recovery.
We are still traveling. The thing is that volatility is now a permanent market feature. And I wonder, is the concept of non-refundable, the rigidity of travel bookings, is that dead? Should flexibility be the number one product that airlines sell now?
In many ways, it is because, to your point, yes, there are conditions depending on the airline. So low-cost carrier models, for instance, are much more, if you don't go, we're sorry, you're not getting your money back. That they take less responsibility for it. Legacy carriers, i.e. in Emirates and Etihad, Qatar Airways, those flag carriers, they really do look at duty of care. So they look very much at ultimately, if there is compensation required, there are methods around that. But the ultimate objective and ultimately the aspiration, as has been made very clear by IATA research, travelers simply want alternatives. Keep me moving. If something has stopped, just keep me moving. Because to be able to be stuck somewhere and then dealing with issues around compensation or traveler, the returns, that doesn't help you when you're stuck in a destination. So the airlines are very much working with the passengers to say, we will find ways to keep you moving. And if there is some sort of compensation required, we'll deal with that at the time is right. But your priority is to end up safely where you need to be. So that's really what the airlines are looking at now. And that's where you are, some of the best airlines in the world when it comes to really making sure that, especially when trouble hits, that passengers are taken care of. And that's not just logistically, it's psychologically as well.
Slightly off topic, but I'm interested in your thoughts on this, Anita. As cost per mile metrics rise, fuel inflation, do you anticipate a contraction in corporate business travel, or is there still this necessity of face-to-face deal making? Does that override the cost spikes we've seen?
It depends on the nature of the business in many ways, Tim. There are many ways in which it's very acceptable to be having a conversation online. But when it comes to significant decision points, significant relationships, in many ways, as we've seen in the 2008 crisis when travel was badly hit because it's a question of can we afford to travel, many relationships, especially when you're dealing with different cultures in the world, would turn around and say, can you afford to not travel? Because if you're not prepared to make the investment to show up, how committed are you to the relationship, to the partnership? So it depends a lot on the nature of the travel, but we're finding increasingly that these virtual meetings, they will still continue because businesses also need to demonstrate their own fiscal responsibility to manage these times, and they don't want to be seen as irresponsible.
I'm very aware it's early in the morning for you, so just a couple more questions, Anita. It's nearly 3 a.m. It's just hit me. Two things. When traditional corridors face friction, which alternative global destinations stand to inherit the market share? Because travelers are going to look for predictable, for low risk options, aren't they?
Indeed, it depends a lot on where it's happening. So, for instance, when the trouble started in the Middle East, where you are, and particularly Dubai, and the whole UAE ultimately, and especially Qatar as well, It's interestingly, Turkey picked up. So Turkish Airlines picked up a huge amount of traffic. They were used for evacuation flights. They were used for a lot of the aid flights. So a lot of it depends on where the air corridor is. But there are definitely some airlines that do benefit. So if we look, for instance, at the fact that the Middle Eastern air passage is still quite restricted because some governments are just encouraging their nationals not to travel that zone because of the conflict. Airlines are making decisions to say, fine, we'll circumnavigate. So if you look at, for instance, Qantas, British Airways, some of the European carriers, they've relooked their routes to be able to go further out, flying into different corridors that traditionally Emirates might have taken, for instance, or Etihad might have taken when the conflict started, because we know that Emirates particularly has come back very strongly with their schedule. So those gaps have been filled. But airlines are able to navigate around the fact that if an aircraft is not able to be utilized in one specific zone, how can you utilize that aircraft in another? Especially again, if the belly has cargo in it, because that's another revenue stream that can continue. So there is flexibility to a degree, because then it also comes back to, is there incremental flying time? And then what is the impact when it comes to jet fuel pricing and crew locations as well? Because naturally that's part of their asset base. So they're careful decisions, but airline leaders, they're used to making these. This is the calculus they do on a daily basis.
Final question for you. Then this is the look ahead question to the rest of 2026. What are the big risks and, by the same measure, the big opportunities the global tourism industry is or should be preparing for?
Indeed. In many ways, Tim, when I look at the crisis that we're facing and how long it's going to be, I divide it into two. So we have the military conflict that's taking place. We have the need for peace in the Middle East, in particular with the Iran conflict. That's one element, but there's the collateral damage, and that's what I really focus on, which is what is the implication? As you know very well, if you look at the Strait of Hormuz, it can't be simply a situation of, if peace is established tomorrow, we can open up the strait. There's a significant backlog there, and it's going to take time to manage that backlog. On top of that, jet fuel needs to still be refined. So it's taking the raw crude, and it's about 10% of the volume of a barrel that goes into jet fuel. Many of the regional refineries have been impacted from the crisis. They've been targets. So there's a lot of time and damage that needs to be made up for when we look at the rest of the year. So I would anticipate we're going to be in a very difficult position when it comes to jet fuel availability, depending on where it is in the world, and jet fuel pricing, probably going into Q4 of this year. That's just my personal hypothesis. That is going to have an impact on how and where people want to travel. But again, the airlines are managing very, very carefully, especially when it comes to capacity. Because it can be very much a situation of, for instance, I'm now based in London. If you have 6 flights a day going from London to Berlin, do you need 6 flights a day? The airlines can pull back on some of that capacity to save jet fuel and allow it to work. So it's going to be a lot of managing that precious resource. From a traveler perspective, again, people are going to keep wanting to travel. They're just going to prioritize where and how they travel now. So there'll be different travel choices. We're already seeing, very sadly as well, another crisis that's starting to bubble into the summer is the issue of climate and just the extreme heat that we're getting in some areas, the extreme rains we're getting in some areas. So this is where travelers are having to really look at, where exactly do I want to go and why? And then how do I get there and get back home? But they're still looking at that. So interestingly, new destinations are opening up because people are wanting to go to places that are not high density travel zones anymore. There are too many travelers there. It's getting too hot. Go somewhere cooler, go somewhere a little bit further out. Change the dates of flying, rather go midweek than aiming on weekends. So travelers are also doing their own calculus on, how can I keep the enjoyment of travel, but not having to worry about not traveling at all, because we can't stop traveling. It's a part of who we are. And the COVID crisis made that very clear, that no matter how much we can talk online, it'd be fantastic to sit across the table from you and have a coffee in Dubai right now instead. Though it is 3 a.m. So
Yeah, maybe not the time for caffeine, but when you're here, There's an open invitation. Anita Mendirata is
Bless
a
you.
special advisor to the Secretary General, UN Tourism. Great to have you on, Anita, and we'll let you get some
Thank you,
sleep.
Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is Mira Business FM on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Instagram, mirabusiness.fm, and more.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio. success. Mira Business FM.
This is Luxury Breaks. It's Mira Business FM, and this is Jacek Ziamek from X Motors. Nice to see
Morning.
you. It's been a
Good
while.
to see you. Yeah,
it's been a few weeks. You know, you left and didn't call,
I had to
didn't
take
email.
a breath.
Get away from us, I suppose. It's been a few weeks since you've been here. And since you've been here, I've got loads of stuff I wanted to talk to you about. I sent you a few bits and pieces of
And
notes
the most
yesterday.
important is the new EV from Ferrari.
I
right?
know. I mean, it's really everything. Because when it came out, every
See,
influencer went
imagine
crazy.
Ferrari is announcing electric Puro Sangue.
Yeah.
Who will be talking about it?
Who cares?
But make it ugly, make it different, okay? Everyone will talk about it.
Where I come from, there's a phrase, right? We have this spread called. Have you ever had Marmite? It's a spread made from yeast extract. So it's called Marmite. It's called Vegemite in Australia, and Australians are always like, "Nah, Vegemite, mate." And we're always like, "No, Marmite, sir." But it's you either love it or you hate it, and this is what the Luce is to me.
I don't want my own opinion yet. I'll wait until I touch it.
Touched and
Yeah.
felt the car. No, I
Feel
know.
it. But I think the interior is amazing, okay?
I agree.
The exterior is controversial.
You've been talking about the controls and all the
It's amazing.
switches.
It's amazing.
For
It's
a while.
amazing.
Yeah.
But the exterior is controversial. But I heard the new generation, which is starting to look at the Ferrari. Okay,
Right.
will like it.
Quite possibly.
We
This
don't
is a
understand
car
it,
aimed
okay?
more at China.
We don't understand it, but it's controversial. But let's wait. Change
okay.
that. I don't like the wheels for sure, but
Okay.
change the wheels. It will change the look of the car.
It always does, though. Most cars, that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really polarized reaction, right? But the thing is with this, so it's Ferrari's first electric vehicle, first sedan, right?
Like liftback, something like this. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
Sedan has more.
is it a sedan? But you know what I mean. It kind of
it's
is.
a 4-door.
It's the first 5-seater.
Okay.
Okay, because without the transmission tunnel. So there's another side to this. It's also a family car. It's their first family car. Really?
Keep in your mind one thing.
Yeah.
Ferrari is so rich, so significant in the industry.
True.
They can make an experiment. They can afford it.
Well, this is the thing. And do they need
They
to
don't
listen
care.
to all the noise? I don't think they care. I don't think it makes any difference. I mean, all publicity is good publicity, right?
Yeah.
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 So on Reddit, people have called it awful. They compare it to Waymo. Car and driver commenters didn't think it has Ferrari DNA. Some of the old Ferrari people would agree
Okay.
with that, maybe. Ex-users calling it a beautiful, ugly car. Some people asking if it's available on Temu or designed by Hot Wheels. Funny, but...
As I told you, if they announce the car officially, it means it's sold out.
Well, that's interesting. So
Yeah.
when a car is announced in the way that it's announced...
Yeah, in a Ferrari
By
business
Ferrari.
model,
Okay.
it's sold out.
So the initial run of cars those
yeah.
are all gone.
Because they're contacting their customers, okay, with the best portfolio,
Yeah.
and they are asking them, do you want it or no?
Yeah,
And most of
okay.
them telling, okay, why not? €500,000, what's the problem? Let's try.
I so don't exist in your circles. I don't. So some people praise it because it's bold and technological.
Shawarma chicken or meat?
Chicken or beef, sir? There's a certain practicality to it. It's a different, the way it works is different, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But then some people compare it to the Nissan Leaf. You've seen the pictures online of the Nissan Leaf in a similar colour.
It's completely misunderstanding the,
I know
the
it is,
idea.
but the point is,
Like
some people
comparing the
praise
Puro
it, some
Sangue
people...
to one of the Chinese projects, right?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Mazda or something like that. It's different. It's a lack of understanding the industry.
Is it the Apple car, though? Because Johnny Hive designed it.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe we
How
should.
much comes from those days? Because he was involved.
We
in
were
that
talking. We were
process. There
talking
must
about
be.
it. We're talking about it. Apple last year announced, let's say, not such a beautiful car. Phone, mobile.
Yeah.
Let's say somehow ugly, but it beat the sales.
Yeah,
Right?
record
Yeah.
sales. Yeah.
So it's same with the Ferrari.
Mm.
If you are so strong at the market in the in your industry, you can try. Let's see what the market say.
The thing is, when you first look at the Luce, my first thought was, and I agree, and lots of people have said this online, is if there wasn't the prancing horse on there, I wouldn't identify
You
that
saw
as
this
a
meme
Ferrari.
when the prancing horse is leaving.
Yeah, but it's so far from my idea of a Ferrari, and I'm not any big Ferrari nut in any way, but I guess if you are a Ferrari nut, it's a long way from what you would have expected. So it's really taken people by
For some
surprise.
people, Ferrari is just a statement, similar like other luxury brands, right? For some people, Ferrari is like a completely different feeling of the car. It's hard to say if so heavy car can give you the pleasure of driving like other Ferraris. We'll see. We'll see what they did.
Well, to be fair, this is looking from afar at the moment, and I think you're right to say that, and that's reasonable. I think though the interior is where that's gonna win people over. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think the critics there, and I think you
Let
would
they
agree with
copy
that.
paste all of it to all the brands in the world, even the Chinese ones.
Yeah, I mean the design. There's design, then there's more design. There's design on top of that, but the seats, the steering wheel, the buttons, that it's all tactile. The e-ink key that we've talked about a lot. The way everything's been machined in aluminium. The displays in there are designed by
Back to
some
90s.
special design.
Back to 90s.
It is. It's very kind of old school in that way. Johnny Ive says that the car's drivetrain allows for radically new architecture, so that it's much more spacious than most sports cars. And there's a fair amount of room.
We can hope that Johnny Ive and the American project, because they said that's the first time when the not Italians strictly projected the car, designed the car. Maybe it will be not so faulty like other Italian projects at the beginning. Okay.
You said that, not me.
I know.
Well, but I mean, that's the way with lots of cars, though, isn't it? Because always the best time to buy any car is at the end of the production, because all the kinks have been ironed out. You know, the engineering's been really sorted.
Okay.
If you buy an early model of anything, you're risking, folding phones. The first folding phones were.
Somehow.
I mean, that's often the case, I suppose. But I mean, perhaps, I don't know. It's got a much more computery sort of look. It looks more like a computer mouse from the side.
It is computerized fully, like all the
exactly.
cars
Yeah.
in the presently. But the difference is, it not gives you the feeling of to be computerized. It is trying you, even if it's EV, because you think about everything is the tablets inside, touchpads and everything, right?
You do.
They're
yeah.
giving you
Yeah,
the
you do.
EV
Sure.
with the touch of the 80s or 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's difference.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see.
The design approach was driven by a determination to explore, exploit, and celebrated the unprecedented opportunities afforded by a new power source. That's what Johnny Ive said.
I spoke about it with my friend. He told me that he read about a new technology patented by the Ferrari. It's completely different idea, but it's close to the modern F1 ideas. When you have a V12 engine, which is not exactly the V12, but there are 6 straight engines, okay, when you can turn on and off each cylinder, okay, and this engine is giving you the sound and it's powering the battery, okay, and you can use the EV powertrain when you're going into the city. But outside you have a V12 engine.
Okay.
It's tricky. I don't know how they want to make it, but with this power of the brand, they can sell it.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Yeah. There won't be a queue for that. They will just be sold. Do you know what I thought was interesting? You're an F1 guy, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so Flavio Briatore, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Formula winning team boss. Here's what he said.
Okay, tell me.
Championship-winning F1 team boss, Flavio Briatore.
Okay.
Here's
One of
what
the
he said.
best cheaters in this
See,
sport.
see
Okay.
you with your opinions.
Smart guy.
I liked what he said, though. He said, look, the Chinese definitely won't be copying this one from us. I thought that was very funny.
Maybe that's an idea.
Well, this is a car that's very much going to be directed in the direction of
Honestly
China.
speaking, they will copy whatever anyone will sell in a high volume. So it doesn't matter.
Do you like it? I know you're interested because you're
I can
a
say at
Ferrari
this
guy.
stage, I don't want to say I like something if I don't touch it.
But you're clearly interested.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Have you got any?
As far as I remember,
order?
they
Do you know
made
if
one
there's anything?
mistake. One Ferrari only. I don't like in the past. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mondial.
Okay.
I like this car. I don't like this car at
That
all.
really divided opinion. That car, I remember that. Yeah.
But the rest of them, okay. I'm always finding something interesting, and when you are behind the wheel, it's a different world. So let's see. Let's see.
Well, you're fascinated by it, aren't you? You want to get behind the wheel and try it.
Nothing special in the EV world, right? This powertrain is nothing special
You don't think
comparing to the Chinese cars, let's say. Because what you can invent more in the EV powertrain, nothing. That's why they give you they're giving you a special design. But outside is, let's say, controversial.
Well, this is for powertrains, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the point of this, and that's the difference. So it's going to sell for about $600,000, over $500,000.
Yeah.
And as you say, Ferrari buyers typically own more than one vehicle from the brand. So you think this is completely sold out. Are there any coming here? Do you know any?
It's too early.
Word?
It's too early.
To
It's
say?
too early. Nobody will tell you anything.
Right. Okay.
They just appearing at the market, just like that. I don't know what's the schedule, but I think maybe the first cars will be in the dealerships after the summer break.
After this summer break. Right. Okay. Angus Mackenzie is the international bureau chief at Motor Trend magazine. Says it feels like a sports car. He's driven the car. Otherwise, it's the shock of the new, because it is. You look. I still think I look at it and I think without the badge, I wouldn't know it's a Ferrari. So it is kind of shocking to look at. And then I look inside and I look at the workmanship.
Remember how much criticized were the first Ferrari four-seaters?
Okay.
FF. Ugly car. Now it's hard to find something like this at the market.
But ugly is subjective, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, ugly to you is beautiful to me.
For me, FF is a gentleman's car.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's perfect Grand Tourer.
You can find a lot of beauty in ugliness. You just have to look. Open your eyes.
Should I take a look in the mirror?
That's not what I was going for. Ferrari say in a statement, right, that the Luce lights the way towards the future. It's not merely the electric Ferrari, it's an entirely new Ferrari. So there's something more in that statement, and we'll wait to see what that really means.
Thrilling me, what would be the next step?
It is. Well, is there going to be a new direction, or is this them dipping their toe in the water? And who knows? I mean, that's the other thing.
You heard what the CEO of Lamborghini said? The resignation of EV from the line of Lamborghini was a good decision.
Was it a good decision, do you think?
I don't know. They should have one.
Well, you would think so, wouldn't you? Everybody else has one. Why don't you have one?
What's the problem for the company like this?
Well, that's a good point. So it's the Ferrari Luce. Do you know what that translates to? Ferrari Light.
Tell me.
Well, it translates to Ferrari Light, as though it's not the full Ferrari, which I wonder if there's an irony in there, or if
I've
that's
heard
on
an opinion
purpose.
that it should be just the brand, Luce by Ferrari. I heard an opinion like this.
Well,
they
that's
should
good.
not brand this car as a full-blooded Ferrari.
Why not? It's a powerful car. It's a fast car. We know that. And it's great range.
We'll see, because as
we understand that to be the case.
I saw a test of one of the most luxury Chinese cars yesterday, and the guy who was testing the car said that it's amazing, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, but it drives like a boat. So like you're parking this one like USS Nimitz, okay? So what is the sense to making such a car?
Oh, dear.
And it's not fulfilling the limit of the weight for the passenger car. So
I understand that. Well, my Jeep drives like a boat, but I like it.
no.
Oh, believe me,
Not
it does.
so much like this Chinese car, I think.
Maybe not. Well, that's the Ferrari Lucio. I want to finish it here because we need to end up today. But there was one other thing I wanted to mention to you. Have you seen the new Jeep?
Yes.
The Scrambler.
Yes, it's opposite than the Ferrari, okay?
Oh, it's so far the other way. But this is it's going to be
That's
a
the
V8,
real car.
That's
the real car.
So the Scrambler is basically the two-door Wrangler with a flatbed, a little flatbed at the back. And there's gonna be a V8.
They're coming to the Raptor territory.
It absolutely is. Their parent company is Stellantis, and they've just
With the
Jeep
Jeep heritage, so it's dangerous for them, I think.
It really is, yeah. Independent front suspension as well, maybe even independent at the rear, which would be a very different driving experience. I don't know, but that's coming. The thing is, it should be 2028 apparently, but it's going to be expensive. It's maybe around about $100,000. There you are.
It doesn't matter because the brands now aiming to the different target.
Well, make sure you get a couple and have them in your showroom and do what you do.
Don't think you will
Pimp
find
those rides.
you'll find a cheap Jeep anymore.
No, that's one of the things. But it's an exciting thing because that's a development. I kind of like the name as well, the Wrangler Scrambler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe I need to get out more. I'm not sure. That is Luxury
Promising.
Brakes for this week. Jacek Ziomek is from
Thank
X
you.
Motors. You can find them in Al Quoz. What's in the window at the moment? What's the big super hypercar at the moment that you're?
I can tell.
You really can't tell me?
No.
Okay. It's always a secret with you. Yeah, Jake, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
If you enjoyed today's edition of Luxury Breaks from Mira Business FM, give it a share, leave a comment as well.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio. Mira Business FM.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Crossroads at Mira Business FM in collaboration with Middlesex University, Dubai. And you come with us to the end of a long and winding road. This is our last episode for season 1 of the show. I was telling my wonderful co-host Dima Magal just earlier that we need a twist ending for a season finale. So I suggested you should shoot me to get everyone back for season 2, but that wouldn't be a mystery. I wanted the Who Shot JR thing. So somebody has to shoot me. We won't tell who. You guess out in listening lab.
You ruined the mystery already. Even if we want to do it, it's not going to work.
Okay, Dima shot JR. Okay, Dima, how are you doing today?
I'm good, and really, today is like our 13th episode.
No, way
15th?
beyond that. I
Beyond
can't
that?
count so high. I'm not good at math.
Me neither.
But I think we're at like 17 or 18. We had
Are we?
planned to do 13, but
Yeah.
we just couldn't stop ourselves.
Oh wow, I can't even count. When we first started, we were like going week by week. Let's see how it goes.
I remember our goal was to get to 10. Then we got to 10 and we said, all right, let's go a little farther. I think we're getting close to 20, but it's...
And each time we say, okay, let's stop this time, and then we come back for another season, and then we have another interesting guest. Let's talk
Exactly.
about
Every
it.
time we want to cut away, Al Pacino, they pull us right back in because we find another wonderful guest. And here is where I'm going to read the intro. See, this isn't totally unstructured.
I wanted to,
there really
to
is a
thank
structure,
our,
Rory.
I wanted to thank our audience, our listeners.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, do I have to?
Okay, if you want to do that. Definitely, now's the time to do it. Sure.
Sorry to interrupt,
No.
Rory, and the introduction. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank them.
Thank you.
No.
There, done. Can we move on?
No, because we do have like great listeners and very loyal. And specifically, I really want to thank Professor Tanya Kiryazi,
Yes.
the Deputy Director of Teaching and Learning, because she's our number one listener.
Our number one listener, our inspiration and guide, Dr. Tanya Kiryatsi. Thank
Yes.
you so much for being out there.
Yeah, and she was always giving us feedback. We're looking forward to next season as well, and we'll go with all these like everything that we heard from people.
We want to thank her, and we want to thank everyone who's given us feedback along the way. And we incorporate that as we reshape the show. Like the $6 Million Man, we'll make it better, stronger, and faster.
Yeah, and
crush
we would
tennis
like to
balls.
know our listeners as well, because we mentioned that before, like, who are you people? We know there are many listeners as well. We would like to know them.
Yeah.
And hopefully by the second season, we'll get more in touch with them as well.
Yeah, if you've got comments, if you've got criticism, well, if you've got criticism, you can keep it to yourself. But if you've got comments, please do share them with us, because we're going to incorporate them as we mix up the format a bit.
Yes. Okay.
So thank you, everyone, for listening and making us number one.
Yes, correct.
I had to put that in again. Okay. Our guest today, though, Rory, thank you for being patient through all that, is Rory McLaughlin, a New Zealand-born commercial film director and executive producer based in Dubai. He spent over a decade working across the Gulf region, founded the creative community Like Minds, one of the UAE's most active creative communities, and currently leads film projects through Film by People. His work spans branded content, documentaries, tourism campaigns, and storytelling-driven commercial films. Rory, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So right before the show, we started, I said, well, what are we going to talk about? And you thankfully had many ideas. But one thing you brought up that I'd love to get to right away, that you were talking about how Film by People is based in Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
Whereas Like Minds is based in Dubai.
It is.
And that you find that there are different approaches to storytelling in the two cities.
Very much.
Can we talk about that for a
More
second?
so to do with filmmaking and commercial filmmaking. I have observed Abu Dhabi has refined its approach, I feel. When you look at the films that are coming out of Abu Dhabi and the production houses that are in Abu Dhabi, there's a specific refined look, right? Whereas Dubai is still getting over the hangover of TV commercials. It hasn't quite refined the idea of authentic storytelling, refined authentic storytelling. It's still trying to place products or focus so much on the brand and its benefits rather than actually engaging the audience in a good story.
And why do you think this is happening? Like, what is the difference between, is it the nature of the client? Is it the culture is a bit different, commercial versus a bit more local? Or
Yeah,
How do you see it?
I think that the industry is much bigger in Dubai, so it's slower to change. Abu Dhabi is smaller and it's more direct. A lot of the work that we do is direct with government agencies, and so we get a lot more freedom in that sense. And so we can propose our own style of filmmaking and storytelling as well. Whereas the model here in Dubai is commercial, so it goes, most of the time goes through an advertising agency. They will follow a specific model, and also it's dictated by a commercial brand, and the brand wants to communicate the different benefits of their product rather than engaging with the audience so that they can build their audience and their following.
I like that phrase. It called me the hangover of television commercial production. What do you mean by that? Can you expand on that a little
Well, I
bit?
mean, that's what our industry here was built on, was on.
Was, though. You're using, that's what I mean. There's a past tense.
Yes.
Is that?
Who watches TV?
Okay.
No one's watching TV commercials anymore.
Well, this is true. But hasn't that industry simply just adapted to the new platforms, or do you think it's completely changed?
It is adapting. It is an ongoing process.
Oh, meaning that once upon a time the norm was a 30-second commercial for television airing.
Yeah.
The norm now is?
Well, the norm was the 30-second television format, right?
Yeah.
When social media came along, rather than adapting to social media, we took the 30-second format and just applied it. We took those same TV commercials and put them onto social media. For the longest time, we would still see like landscape 16:9 commercials. Those don't work anymore on social media. It's all got to be vertical.
You know, I witnessed that shift because it was like almost 9 to 10 years ago when this started to happen. I was then working on production houses, like as editing and sound engineer, and I remember
That's how we met, yeah.
This is how we met. So we go back to
the prehistoric era.
yeah. So I do remember when we used to have that, even like the adaptation of all these commercials and things, and it was like a big production, especially for cinema, and 30 seconds, even 1 minute at times. But then after social media, not only they started to become shorter, they started to ask for 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, because these are the ads that you see on YouTube or social media. Not only that, the quality itself started to decline, because you are seeing it on digital platforms. You're not seeing it on TV anymore. So those big cinematic, at the beginning, they used to brag about at some point, yeah, let's make it cinematic. Let's use latest cameras and bring in directors and stuff, like international directors. But then they started to rely on freelancers because anyone can film by their mobile phone or decent cameras for social media and stuff. So it affected the entire production.
In fact, that look is favored over a glossy look, I would say, at this point in time.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
I actually find it quite interesting. This is something that I've probably over the last few years had a self-realization of, is that quality wasn't necessarily driven by the consumer. It was also driven by the client and the agency as well. Bigger production, bigger markup.
Correct. And it started to influence production companies as well, because they can't produce that huge production as before. And they have competitors which are freelancers who would charge way less than a production company would charge.
Yep.
Do you see it going back, changing though now, or still the same?
It's such a fascinating time right now. And I mean, we can talk specifically even about a couple of movies that have come out recently that are showcasing the importance of this, what I'm about to talk about, right?
You're thinking about like Backrooms?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Obsession.
Yeah.
2 YouTube filmmakers, right? That
That is the only story now in entertainment over the past 2 weeks.
Exactly.
And how they trashed Star Wars, the corporate franchise. Yep. But I would argue, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Now we're on Backrooms. Thank you. I would argue that it's a new sort of franchise, the social media franchise, as opposed to the corporate monolith franchise like Star Wars had become. But it's still just a franchise. The storytelling stories don't ever change. This is what I always tell my students. No matter the platform changing, the stories don't change. And now it's sort of a homegrown franchise that looks primitive versus a very deluxe franchise that looks glossy, but there's still going to be the fight over who owns it. There's still going to be demand from the audience that it tell a story.
Yeah, but what I think differentiates this is that both Obsession and Backrooms came with an audience already.
Yes,
sure,
absolutely.
Star Wars, sure, it's a legacy brand. It's been around for a while. It has built that community, But I mean, I think people also have an expectation of the quality that comes out. So there is an expectation of, the production that goes into that. Whereas, Backrooms and Obsession was a tiny, tiny budget in comparison.
Exactly. So, and that's what the audience wanted. That's what the audience was.
I don't necessarily think that's what they wanted. It's that's what they expected.
Oh, that's an interesting distinction between the two. Do you think, well, again, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. You were going to talk about how things have changed. You said it's a fascinating time right now.
Yes.
And maybe that's a way to get back to that, about distinction of what they want versus what they expect.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like what we were just talking about, the 30-second TV commercial and the size of the production, and it would be this wow factor that would be associated with the brand. And there's brand equity attached to that. If someone sees that and they get confidence in the size of the production. Whereas now it's all about authenticity. And it's because we're so flooded with all of this AI slop that you see the imperfections in a something you shoot on your phone. You see that it's just a one take, or you see that it's something that someone has put their passion into, rather than TV commercial where people are doing it for a job. They're not actively, creatively involved. They're not that passionate about what they're doing.
Speaking of AI and authenticity, the other day on social media, I saw a video of someone who's in Africa and trying to take a picture with a tiger. So there are two caretakers of the tiger and holding him and spending so much effort in order to get that perfect picture. If you look at all the comments, you can see the tiger is about to eat his head. Did he
after the picture was taken? Did he do so after?
Yeah, and multiple times, and they had to keep milk very close to the tiger mouth, so he doesn't jump into his head, just a second apart in order to take that picture. If you go to the comments, all of them, many of the comments are saying, by the way, you can just use AI for that picture. And this made me think, are we really going to reduce the appreciation of authenticity because we can just do it by AI? Usually, I thought it should be the opposite. Yeah. We don't appreciate AI because it's fake. Yeah. But now we are not appreciating the real authentic thing because we can easily do it through AI.
They're connected, right? And what you just told me is an interesting story that's attached to it. So sure, you've got the photo that person has earned, whether or not we agree with it, but there's an interesting story attached to it compared to just writing a prompt, tiger next to mouth looks scary.
But would people actually appreciate that story?
100%. Isn't that what art is? Isn't that why we appreciate art? Because of the artist has had to slave through or go through heartbreak, or Van Gogh was it that cut off his ear in order to make a living as an artist. There's a story that's associated with that adds value to the art.
So you're saying that when something looks a bit more flawed, the audience now currently responds to that more strongly.
100%.
Because it looks more real. They're looking for the real.
It's relatable as well.
Yeah. And that, do you think, is at the root of, for instance, I know Backrooms is a horror movie made by a kid, but it's not a glossy production. So in a weird way, it's more real to the audience.
Yeah, but I remember when Backrooms first came out as the concept, not the full movie, but this idea of being sent to this alternate universe that is just made of backrooms and a scary monster that is hiding in the ceiling and in the shadows, right? That was scary at that time. Now it's developed into a movie. I'm already interested in the lore of it, so I am engaged. I want to go and see it.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, though, in terms of the quality, I think there's the found footage aspect to it that I think is engaging. But because it's something that I've seen a relatable person like you and I make, not a studio, that's more engaging. That's the authenticity.
Exactly. And yet at the core, it is the thing that will never go away. It's a good story idea. It grabs you. There's endless rooms you're trapped in, and there's a monster coming to get you. I mean, it's a labyrinth.
No, spoiler.
I haven't seen it, but I think anybody can figure that one out. I don't think we're spoiling it for anyone.
Now that you say that people relate to it more because it looks real or the authentic part and stuff, at some point I do struggle with combining authentic story or very real, especially in performance, with highly polished cinematic visual. I feel like it has to have a bit of a realistic approach when even visually it has to reflect that realness. You can't have it like overly stylized and high-end visuals and stuff while you're trying to keep it authentic. So do you think this approach will be reflected as well as trying to keep it a bit more documentary style or more like real?
Time and a place, right? What's the brief? For instance, a hospital. You want to see an image that's clean, that has that feels professional, because it's in relation to the service that you expect as well.
It's interesting. It's the current iteration of something that I think works, at least in the visual arts, again and again. I was talking to my daughter about this yesterday. She's young and she doesn't say, I don't like black and white movies, which I think is not unusual. And I was telling her that the odd thing was that black and white was originally used by filmmakers because it was cheaper. And the deluxe stuff they would use color for when Hollywood went all out with a lavish production. So in the 1950s, it was, as the price for using color stock went down, it became an aesthetic choice towards the end of the era of the black and white film. So for instance, and the popular perception was that black and white was more real. Even though to an audience today it's more off-putting and false, back then a black and white film was more real and gritty. So like, for instance, Hitchcock made Vertigo, and it was glossy and in color, and it bombed in its day. So because he wanted to get the audience back in and make them feel more real and not more distant, he made Psycho, and he made it in black and white afterwards because it would feel more real. So that was like their equivalent of found footage versus Hollywood studio at the time. Yeah. And the audience always, and so what you're saying is there a way to fuse the two? And I think that, for instance, film, you look at films from the 70s, like The French Connection. That's an attempt to fuse gritty documentary black and white with color into something new and make something new. And maybe things will go that way with found footage versus...
I think if it carries on this way, it will go back to early realism style, where you keep everything neutral, real, documentary style, a bit raw. I wouldn't be surprised if they would try to experiment also between real stories in real life and forming a narrative out of that rather than full performance and fiction.
I think an interesting observation right now in terms of trends and look and feel of commercials or just like storytelling films that are coming out right now, right, is this look of adding film grain, a 16mm kind of a filter to the footage. Why? Why are we trying to degrade it to make it look older, right?
Correct, yeah.
So that it has imperfections, so that it feels more organic, so it feels more real. But also there's a nostalgic element to it. When we look at those, that look, we associate that with, films like The Goonies or E.T. or that feel good of that time, the era when films were shot on celluloid film.
It's not unlike the move back from CDs to vinyl.
Yeah,
for
totally.
When you have physical media for music.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I even have some students who say, we want that look in our film. We want it to look more of an old film style, a little bit like grainy or something. Yeah. And I ask why you want that. How does it reflect on your story? And they say just to keep it more real and connect with it. Though the story can be sci-fi,
Yeah, no. I've heard that from the students as well. There is that retro look, for lack of a better term. In your work, one thing we talk about again and again with guests is a sense of a community in the region, and you are very clued in to the community with your work. So we talk about our students wanting this sort of thing. Do you sense these sort of trends with the creatives in the community here that you speak with?
By the way, our students always attend his events.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Many of them, and I even joined them for Like Minds. They love it. They were the ones who are approaching me, you should join us for this event. You should join us for this event. And each time they ask for update, are you joining for this one? You should. So they love it, and it's really buzzing event.
See, that makes you the perfect person to end the season on, because the whole point of the show is to find a community, a crossroads. And you're there, right there at the crossroads.
Yeah. So Like Mine started 4 years ago. My motivation behind it was I had recently become a freelance film director at that time. And rather than sending out a WhatsApp to a producer to say, hey, what's going on? Do you have any projects? It's easier to invite them out to meet them at a bar and have some time together. And socially and with other filmmakers and producers and so on. Then that grew from 5 people sitting around to a table to now we're on average about 150 per month.
Wow. Over 4 years,
Yeah.
you say. That's fast growth. So how would you, you've got the group in Dubai, like mine's, and then you've got Filmed by People in Abu Dhabi. What is for the uninitiated, what is the key difference between those two?
Well, one's a production house.
Okay.
And so that's my bread and butter. That's where I work. We've got a great team there. We're associated with a creative events agency called People & Co. A lot of people have heard of them. And we focus on human-centric storytelling. Like Minds is a community of creatives. Sure, majority are filmmakers because that's my background, but as we have gone on, it's amazing the variety of creative people that I get to meet there now. I meet architects to fashion designers, government officials wanting to come down to understand what is it that the industry is talking about and how can we connect. There's been a recent mindset and change at Dubai Film and Gaming Commission. They're there. They're coming to Like Minds. This is an opportunity for community to directly interact with government, which was never heard of before.
Does this link back to what we were talking about with at Cannes a few weeks ago?
Yes, yeah.
That was the Film and Gaming Commission as
yes,
well,
Film and Gaming
correct?
Commission, they were in Cannes as well because they are trying to make that collaboration and bringing investments to UAE. So it's good you can see a change in the community here or in the film scenery because mainly I always say that all of us working on the commercial side actually are filmmakers. We really are looking for that space where we can produce film and create these films.
I have a prediction, an exciting prediction for our industry at the moment.
All right. Get out the crystal ball.
For the longest time, we were talking about that the industry was built on the 30-second TV commercial format, right? And there was budgets there and people could make careers and live quite comfortably. Social media came along and there was this image of if it's social media, it's got to be a cheaper budget. Now you're getting the microdramas and how popular they are. And you've got one group in the States that's earning something like 800 million, just a microdrama channel. It's
on our very first episode, we had a guest talking about microdramas and how that's the coming thing. And now all these months later, is it still the coming thing? Is it still?
Big time.
Yeah. I mean,
okay,
go on.
There's a group.
We'll get to that in a
I'll just
second.
name it. There's a group here called Web3 Studios who have just contracted a couple of colleagues of mine. Now, from the advertising perspective, those are two greats that are now going to leave the advertising world to start working in the microdramas. But fantastic for them. Because now they're working in narrative, they're working in their dream field that all of us as filmmakers actually we would prefer to be working in. So I'm seeing, my prediction is that we're going to see a shift away from the commercial world and into not just microdramas, but more narrative style filmmaking. And I also see, this is another topic that I'm quite passionate about, is storytelling in general. And the opportunity for Dubai to capitalize on that as a storytelling center, not just for the region, but for the world.
That's what we had with Elijah about making Dubai an exporting culture for storytelling and for commercial. Going back to microdrama, usually when there's a shift in, let's say, in genre or something historically, or you find it a bit coming like naturally as an artist, more lean to that side, or the audience taste change. But for some reason, I don't know if you both agree with me, I feel it's somehow forced. I feel like there is agenda behind the microdrama because there's also lots of announcements about funds. We want people to create microdrama.
You think it's a bubble that will soon burst?
Not necessarily that, but I feel it more systematic than it's a natural artistic approach.
Thank you. Thank you. We hadn't talked about this, but you eloquently expressed what I had vague misgivings about microdrama because I started looking into it over the past few months, and I just, as a grumpy old man, I think it's anathema to storytelling to try to have a cliffhanger every second or so. You cannot build, there's no sense of rhythm, there's no sense of structure. It goes contrary to what story is. In my opinion, I could be convinced otherwise, but that's an opinion thing. More fundamentally, I don't meet anybody who watches or wants microdrama. I just hear about an industry that is crazy about microdrama, and there's a lot of money in microdrama. Now, everybody talks about backrooms. My daughter and all her friends, they love backrooms. That's not an industry-driven mania. That's kids genuinely like this thing. But microdrama, I mean, she doesn't watch them. I've never met anyone who does watch them.
Like, even, is there any, I didn't hear, maybe I just don't know, but is there any product out there with microdrama that actually did a big hit? And that's why after they said, okay, let's do this again and again? Because I don't know any of that.
My knowledge of it is that it's not our world.
I've seen CD exposés. Apparently, it's like porn.
Yeah.
And porn and microdrama, I can see as being
There's some soft porn elements there for sure.
that goes together. But real storytelling, the storytelling about other things, that would be harder to work in that format.
I think there's two elements here, right? One is that the microdramas themselves, that's not necessarily what filmmakers are aspiring to become as a microdrama director or filmmaker, right? But it is a gateway. It's an opportunity to prove that you have the skills as a director, as a storyteller, to then go to a network or to a streaming platform and say, hey, I've got a successful microdrama, but I've got this idea for this 8-part series that I'd actually like. And I've proven the success in this. Can you help me create that? That's a great foot in the door.
But, Rory, do you think we are ready for it? Because, especially in our region, there are still many aspiring filmmakers, and we still have so many stories we didn't get to tell and develop. Now, for example, even in my close community, my friends who are like filmmakers, directors, and so, they are looking to create microdrama, not because they are a fan of it, it's because they know they can easily get the fund for it. While they have many fascinating stories are still on the shelf, they didn't actually produce it, So do you think we are ready for it?
Why not? Like, whether it works or not, I don't know.
I think if you've got a good story, people will show up.
Yeah.
No matter the platform, no matter the medium, if you've got a good story, people show up. I haven't yet encountered a good story in microdrama. And that might be it. I mean, Backrooms, for instance, could that have been microdrama? Maybe, but you also want to build up tension. So you need...
a totally different medium, totally different format, right?
Yeah, exactly. And something that I can't see working in that. And outside of porn, there's not really a lot of things that I do see working in that format, to be honest.
I appreciate that us here in the region, that microdramas haven't necessarily taken off yet, maybe. But it is proven in Asia. It's huge in Asia. It's a big market there. And the numbers don't lie.
Well, that's true. The numbers don't
Asia,
lie. I just
correct.
haven't personally met anybody. So
I think it's mainly influenced by Asia, especially Korea, especially for Gen Zs. They are fascinated now by K-drama and K-pop and stuff. So that format is mainly directed for them, mainly for Gen Zs.
You know what's interesting is that you just brought up something, is K-pop and K-drama. Look how an amazing job South Korea has done to export storytelling and music to the world.
yes.
For me, that's the first time I've seen a non-Western country export, like non-English even, to the world and be successful at it.
Hollywood did it very well for almost a century, and maybe one of the only reasons they did it was they were the first, and they built up an industry very quickly, and they did it with westerns, with crime stuff, with monsters, with stories that people wanted. So, and you're right. Since then, I can't think of anyone who's done it as successfully. There's always been little blips of things. From Europe and various countries for a year or two, but not the sustained thing that Korea's been doing for a while.
I think because Hollywood managed, because cinema always existed even in France and Italy before, but Hollywood managed to change it from an art form into industry.
Exactly,
and this
a mass market entertainment.
So I think this is what microdrama is also doing, because even people, they perceive it more of a business side or industry side more than actually storytelling.
So again, what they're... Oh, sorry.
I think they see it as a business side.
I
think they see it as a business side because it's an opportunity, because it's popular, it's getting the views. So maybe it's that as well.
But again, Korea has this culture that the world is interested in, so that they've found the vessel in microdrama, in pop songs. But the first thing is they have to have that story that people want, and they have that. So I think that's the key to exporting culture. So then we'd come around to here. Can it be done here?
Yes. So this is the exciting part, and what I've been trying to have these tough conversations with from either government officials or people of industry, is that I'm sure you've witnessed this. There are a lot of resources and focus on creating opportunities for young filmmakers or to people to enter the industry, right? But what programs are there for established filmmakers to break that glass ceiling, to export films or stories from here to the world? There's nothing.
Well, there's nothing. There's two parts to that. There's no way for them to export it, but there's also what is the thing they're going to export? That's the next question.
But I mean, look what Korea's done. They are exporting the culture, and it's not just the films. They're exporting a culture of greatness in terms of the films, in terms of the music.
That's what I mean. They have the story and they have the vessel for the story. Do we have either here?
Why not? Why can't we?
You know, we do.
That's what I'm saying. Like
I'm offering
that's something that's where I believe we should be focusing on is developing that.
You know, like I think our main issue here that there isn't a direction, someone to take the lead. That hey, people, there are too many filmmakers, there are too many stories, but let's make something out of it. Like you created the community, and you're the most exposed to all these people. And I'm sure you've met many interesting characters, many interesting stories, and even you're making films about human-centric stories, right? But all of them remain individual, and all of them remain scattered, even in like minds, for example. Each one trying like their best to create something, as in film or fund from here, fund from there, trying to get information, trying to get support. But there isn't a clear direction as a strategy, and that's why when you say that Film and Games Commission that they joined trying to do something. It's a first step that's really interesting to trying to create a unified direction or strategy for it. And I think this is what we are missing here.
There's been a major change there, by the way, at the Dubai Film and Television Commission. Some excellent new leadership have come in there, and they're engaging with the industry. They just held a workshop recently with a few esteemed invited filmmakers to figure out what are the challenges and how can the government help. But I think also we need to realize as an industry is that we can't just keep looking to the government for the answers. We as an industry
That's
need
what
to
I was
make
going to
those
say.
opportunities.
There's a certain sense, also not even, yes, we have to make an industry and not look to the government. Both of them, I think, to a certain degree, putting the cart before the horse. The horse being the story you have. And I know I'm beating a dead horse to keep that metaphor going. We'll just talk about horse metaphors. Hollywood, as you rightly said, there were other people making films. Hollywood made it an industry. And I would say there are two main stories that it used to do that, which were the Western and the horror movie, the monster movie. And one was the Western is America's idealized self-image of itself, and the horror movie is America's worst fears about itself. But those became universal, ambition and fear. The Western and the horror movie as these two poles. They're very sturdy formulas. Nobody makes Westerns anymore, but they make cop movies, and they're just Westerns in modern dress. So they're still making those same stories over and over. And I think what needs to be found for any industry to get going and for the government to help it or anything is to find those stories that the world wants.
Big time.
And America was very, I don't know if it's luck or if it was just destiny, but it had Westerns and horror movies. And this place needs its Westerns and horror movies. To give it an industry. The industry will follow if they come up with a product that the world wants. That's the way it always works for any product.
So something that I'm actively working with Dubai Culture at the moment is that this is a personal thing I'm working with. This isn't officially accepted so much by Dubai Culture. We have pillars such as performing arts, music, some visual arts in terms that could include film. Why don't we have storytelling as a pillar?
Oh, absolutely should. I mean, you're preaching the converted right here. Storytelling is what it's all about. It's the most powerful tool everybody has. You tell, and whenever people are trying to decide on a program at Middlesex in the media department, I say, well, do you want to tell stories to influence people? Then you're advertising. Do you want to do it to inform? Journalism. Do you want to do it to entertain? Film. Obviously, film can do all those things too, but I got to break it down. But yes, it's all about storytelling. Whoever shapes the story, and everybody's realizing that more and more with the dominance of social media. And there isn't an industry in the world that doesn't need storytelling. So yes, I agree with you completely. Why isn't storytelling pushed as a major resource that must be developed?
Almost each single guest, you need to listen to our podcasts, Rory. Each single guest, each single guest, literally, they're either involved in storytelling in a way, like if you remember Dana as well, she's doing also like with her business strategies through storytelling. Or someone else does like film mainly storytelling. Like it's in many other aspects, not only for entertainment industry, in many other things. But also I had the question earlier for the microdrama. As David said, it doesn't make sense or it's not that realistic to actually have a hook each minute, because to keep going for each episode, you need to end 1 minute by something interesting to lead for the next one. You also mentioned authenticity in storytelling, and people are preferring more authentic approach. Both are extremely contradicting with each other. How would you actually find that we would create authentic storytelling in microdrama while we have a hook each 1 minute? I see them both in totally different directions.
I feel like you're asking me as if I know about microdrama. I'm not a fan of microdramas. I don't really care about microdramas.
Did I sound angry? I didn't mean to sound angry. I'm wondering.
I don't know.
And I feel you have answers for too many things, so this might be one of them.
Look, why do people scroll through their phone? It doesn't make sense to just endlessly scroll through their phone, but they do. Same with microdramas, they endlessly scroll through them.
But me,
I would say that the medium created the message of microdramas, scrolling. But your question is, can you actually make meaningful storytelling?
Yes.
I mean, I would love to, Andrei Tarkovsky doing a microdrama. That would be a great one to wrap your head around. Because I don't know if you watch any Tarkovsky movies, but in 3 hours, not a whole lot happens. I'm not knocking him. It's very good, but it's the diametric opposite of microdrama.
Just a little thing on that, though, is maybe that's just something that we need to get better at, is to tell stories in a shorter time. For instance, the famous, the shortest story in the world, for sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Ernest Hemingway. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm a fan of microdrama, to be honest.
Or Ernest Hemingway, for that matter. Stupid story.
Yeah, because it's ruining the story.
I see what you're saying. You're playing devil's advocate now for the microdrama. and with an example like that, it shows it can be done. Could Ernest Hemingway cough that up week after week? I don't know.
But doesn't he also have the same saying, I wish I could have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time?
Yes, that's true. That's true. I mean, Ernest Hemingway began the whole, I don't want to put it all on him, but he's certainly sort of a poster boy for the movement in the 20th century to pare down language, to simplify it, as opposed to the 19th century where it's very ornate and flowery and you didn't use one word, but you could use 50. He went the opposite way. And we have followed suit. We value simple, pared down language rather than flowery language, which 200 years ago was not the case at all. And so basically, maybe he was pointing the way towards the world of microdrama. And if you remember that example, nobody says, oh, Hemingway, what a hack. so he certainly might have found value in it. Yeah. It's a good point.
Back to something you were talking about earlier is, maybe you didn't say it specifically, but you were heading in this direction. How can we be prepared to sell stories to the world from this region?
Yeah, right. I was saying in that direction for sure.
And we're not ready.
Yeah.
We're not developed as expert storytellers. It doesn't mean to say that the stories aren't there, but there's a difference between having a good story and being a storyteller.
Well, that's one thing, and let's get to that in a second, but just to backpedal for a second, I do think that over the past 16, 17, 18 weeks that we've been talking, that everyone's talking about the notion of an industry from here, I do think we're all circling that problem, that we want an industry, but we don't have the story. Once they had the Western and the horror movie, Hollywood was off and running. We were looking for the story that we were looking for the product that the world wants to buy. And if we find that, the industry will be set up very quickly to provide that product.
I disagree.
Okay.
Not with you.
Cut off for Mike.
So this is This is the hook towards the last episode.
This is where we build up to the murder.
Yeah. I'm shooting you in a different way.
She's got a gun. Tune in next season.
If you show the gun, you must use the gun.
Yeah. No, I mean, I disagree because you both actually mentioned, I'm shooting both directions. No, because you both mentioned that what is the story, or like, are we ready? Are we not able to? Like, the story is not going to come out of nowhere all of a sudden. And plus, this type of industry, we need to, it's something that you would learn or execute as it goes, by experience, not by planning. Mm-hmm. Once you plan that, yes, we want to make it exporting industry, let's see what artists do we have, how can we collaborate, what kind of stories do we have, and then start emerge. Mm-hmm. No one will have a story out of nowhere and then decide on making it. Like, first, we are struggling of making our own films by having fund or like our own crew and stuff. Mm-hmm. So leave alone by making that also an exporting culture. That's why I say we are lacking direction, not necessarily by government, but at least the filmmakers who are here, to at least, if, for example, with Like Minds, I'm sure there are many people, even though they're way too experienced, I'm sure many are willing to work for free on such creative projects. If everyone like collaborate and say, we're putting our efforts together, let's at least make one feature film. Let's start brainstorming. Let's start forming crew. Who's in? And then we make it. Once we make it, we see the result. Why don't I lead this? Okay. Once we have the result, and then it will encourage others, and then like the ball will start rolling.
Yeah, that's a slow process, right? Dubai is one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. People got to pay rent.
It's cheaper than America these days.
Yeah, sure. But sorry, they people need to work in order to live, and so to take 3 months off to do a feature, it's a lot of time.
But you just said microdrama is the wave of the future, so you wouldn't have to take.
Or even short, even short. No, don't you think that short would be a good
Short
start
films
for
sure.
that? Right?
100%, yeah.
Not necessarily feature.
Yeah, there are a few elements there though, and a conversation that people don't talk about enough is distribution. You know, we have the talent. We have the locations, we have access to some of the best equipment in the world. All of that we can get for free, basically, because you know the right people. If you had a great short film and came to me and said, this is the idea, can you help me make it? Yeah, I can call in favors to make that happen. Where's it going to go? We've got no distribution channels, strong distribution channels. We don't have a strong cinema culture of attendance here.
But wouldn't you say it's a worldwide problem now?
Coming back to Backrooms, like that's showing the total opposite of that, right? We were heading in that direction, but the Gen Zs that have watched Backrooms and Obsession, they're the ones, they're 85, 90% of the audience going to see that film.
Okay, so my understanding of Backrooms is that it was made by a kid and it was put on YouTube, I think, and the following started because he had something good and people showed up. And then A24 came to him and said, we'll give you the money to make a 90-minute version of this that we will put in movie theaters. Yes, yeah. So the distribution was there, but once upon a time, he would have made a Backrooms movie about 2 or 3 years ago. He's 20 now. He probably would have made it when he was 16, when people made more feature films. People don't make many feature films anymore because there's no distribution anywhere. Yeah. For it. They don't know where, they can't sell it to cable, they can't sell it to DVD. Nobody goes to movie theaters anywhere, so it'll be out for a brief time. Now, I know you're saying, but they've showed up for this. They did, and maybe if more films are made that tell stories, they will show up again. That might be the lesson of it, but right now, they don't really show up for much.
I understand the gap. The infrastructure here is more for indie films, while people are looking for the instant rewards or as for commercial film. Yeah. This is where the issue is. We are more commercial-based industry, or let's say country in general. even if we want to work in film, because I compare it, for example, to Jordan or Lebanon or in other regional countries, all filmmakers there who mainly work in indie films because they don't have that industry apart from Egypt. They have both indie and the commercial side. Filmmakers there are willing to wait 10 years by time they join workshops, by time they develop their scripts, getting funds, all these kind of things, they are willing to invest that long term in order to get one film each 10 years or each 5 years, right? Here, we don't have the infrastructure like these countries, so we are forced to have the indie approach, but we are looking for the commercial outcome, and both can never happen.
Yeah, that's why a good point.
Think
you can't make an indie film and have a good commercial outcome.
that's why people end it before they even start.
Yeah.
Why don't we look to other countries that are similar sized, for instance, or similarly developed? And I come back to my own country, New Zealand, right? Some of the best films in the world are being made coming out of New Zealand. Films, TV series are being made there. Their approach is more of a service approach. They're not looking for a domestic market. They are attracting big productions to New Zealand. They get quality, they get great landscapes, they get film rebates as well. We have all of that. Maybe not necessarily the rebate, maybe that might come soon. But that's where we could be attracting these bigger productions. We just had Jack Ryan film here, right? That employed a lot of professionals. That gave a lot of opportunities. You had June. That gave a lot of opportunities to filmmakers to get that experience, get on set. We attract more of those. Sure, it's great for industry and economy because it provides jobs, but it also gives opportunities to filmmakers to prove themselves or to shadow an international director and get an idea, what is it like, what does it take to make a feature film? Because right now we don't necessarily have those systems and plans in place. That's a great opportunity that we could be looking into.
I know many films are made in New Zealand. Yeah. Are there films being exported from New Zealand, made by New Zealand filmmakers?
Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit.
No, that's true. That's true. Okay. The caveat for that is it's New Zealand filmmakers. New Zealand. The story is a British novel, so they took the story from somewhere else, made it there. So, but I was thinking more about homegrown stories. Are there examples of that? Because I know we're having two different conversations here in a way. One is about turning this region into a nexus for filmmaking, where filmmakers come here and make films and train the next generation of filmmakers. But then the other conversation we've been having also is about creating and exporting product, which is what we've been talking about in other episodes. So I guess that's my question. Are there films coming out of New Zealand besides Lord of the Rings, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, like you've got Taika Waititi, right? One of the world's famous directors.
Oh yeah, that's right. And the What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah. So there is quite a bit coming out.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's mostly a fantasy, dark fantasy with a dark sense of humor. There's a certain sensibility.
Yeah, and I think that sits with our culture and our.
But that's important. Yeah. That's a key thing people have to. What's the national identity? What's the national character that shapes product?
That's tough for us here because we are so multicultural. We talk about identity.
So many people from different places here. It is a true crossroads. That's the name of the show. Yeah. And how do you find a product that reflects an identity?
Yeah,
that's a big problem too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to explore more with the literary world. You know, you've got the Emirates Literary not Foundation, but the Expo.
Well, the Literature Festival?
Yes, the Literature Festival.
Yeah, Emirates Lit Fest is great. That's a great event.
But, why can't we be, as filmmakers, be looking at that established, proven stories to adapt those into films?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Rather than starting from scratch.
So you said in films by people or people by film? Okay, you said that it's a human-centric stories.
Yes.
So it's a good way to start that conversation. Parash, rewind. What kind of stories do you have? I mean, that would be interesting to know because you're dealing with stories from the UAE as well. right? Or not necessarily.
International.
International. But how do you choose that for your production house, that this is mainly, you're not limiting yourself or something like, tell us more about
It's
it.
interesting that, no, I feel like we specialize in that there are already a lot of production houses out there that specialize in either scripted TV commercials or, green screen or studio shoots. We specialize in creating stories that have a human connection. Now, that also depends on the briefs that we are looking for. We get briefs that we turn down because it doesn't match what we do. But say, for instance, I'll give you an example. One of the projects that we work on is, that we have been working on over the years, is for the Zayed Award for Human Fraternity. I mean, in the name, you're going to see some interesting stories associated with that, right?
Yeah.
And that's an Abu Dhabi government initiative, and it's a way that we highlight people who are creating impact around the world. So for instance, last year our team, we travelled to Palestine, to Lebanon with the World Central Kitchen, to Barbados, to all over to gather these stories, to tell them back in Abu Dhabi and present them there in Abu Dhabi in a refined way.
So you were exposed to so many stories for a while locally, right? Didn't you find a unified theme in it?
No, not necessarily. I think that it can be a bit frustrating in that some stories can be hijacked for other agendas, and that's a tough conversation to have nationally in terms, coming back to identity. Just letting a story be a story and not have to inject different agendas into it.
Okay. So it can't
That's
be...
not anything to do with Film by People, by the way. That's just that's just a general observation.
No, I'm just
it could
trying...
happen anywhere.
I mean, because you were exposed to mainly human stories, so maybe just like a general human stories, this can be by itself a theme for UAE to be as an exporting culture, because many human beings here, regardless of their background.
Yeah, I think we need to also find out what is it that people are interested in. You can't just say, oh, well, we've got great human stories, so let's export that. Do people want to hear those stories?
Do people want to see microdrama?
These are the questions we pose and cannot answer.
But I think going back to stories, like I said earlier, I think we have the stories here. I think there's so many legends, old legends and stories that we've not explored enough of.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean,
so much lore that we can build on, and
That's exactly what I meant, that we can't just have it out of nowhere. Once we decide we want to make it exporting culture and start looking for stories, it's then when we will actually see these stories. But they will always be hidden unless someone digs deeper to find them.
Well, something interesting you said was that Hollywood is built on monsters and westerns have kind of disappeared, right? Because they got a bit the same.
well, I think they just metamorphosed into cop shows.
Yeah, sure,
basically.
sure. And along the way through the spaghetti westerns in Italy and so on, right?
Yeah.
But for the longest time, that was their export. They saw it was a successful model of a
The
story.
world wanted them.
Right. So I feel like my observation of the world is that we're interested in seeing stories from cultures that we don't know about but can relate to from, okay, that's a culture that is different from mine, but actually at the core of it, it's got family related, there's relationships, there's friendships, there's similarities.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a magical monster or something
in
between.
If you're not
tell
telling people something about the human condition, which I believe under all the cultural trappings is the same for everyone, everywhere. And that's why we all respond to stories. The good stories are the ones that speak to that something that's in every human heart and mind. And if you find that, and you put on some unique local trappings, it will sell. Yeah. And that's what the Westerns did. Even when I was living in Germany, I'd go in train stations, and they'd have tons of Westerns written by Germans for Germans who couldn't care less about America in every other way, but they wanted that story. Yeah. And if you can find that, and what is it from this part of the world?
Can I give you example from the Arab region? Okay, there are many examples of combining multiple countries, though we are one region and have more similarities than just like internationally, that's abroad. There are many, especially now they call it Pan-Arab. Okay, Pan-Arab means you are bringing a Lebanese actor who his father happened to be previously married to a Syrian woman, so he has a Syrian brother who's married to Egyptian girl. Like, it's just a way in order to combine all these nationalities together. They are the worst.
They're contrived.
Sorry, I know.
They're trying to pander
I know you were
to
trying
an
to
audience.
have a good ending, but like they are the worst because they are.
And on that note, we're ending the season. They suck.
No, I mean because they are truly losing the identity, and they feel in the narrative they have to force it to weave it together in order to justify this diversity of nationalities. Also, when you watch something that's purely Syrian or purely Lebanese or purely Palestinian, each one have their own identity, so you feel that it has more soul in it, all right? Or let's say just as a smaller region. There were also many TV series who were shot in Dubai, trying to make these stories as well, but it's like UAE based. They didn't succeed much because they felt so flat.
Yeah.
So even if we combine on a human level international, yes, storytelling, yes, informational part, yes, it has all the ingredients, but it doesn't have the taste.
If you're just talking about, oh, he's from Syria, she's from Jordan, that's surface stuff. That's what I'm talking about. It's going to be pandering, and it's never going to connect with a wide audience. Even it might not even connect with a local audience. Star Wars, the original, not talking about the monolith it became. I'm talking about the original film in '77. Nobody cared about spacemen and robots. It was a classic story that was about the human condition, and that's why everybody reacted to it.
Yeah, the stories are not about their nationality. There are stories.
Yeah.
There is like a drama, and there's a story, and there's something in it, but it's just lacking soul.
But what is? Oh yeah, they have a story. That's what I mean. But
Yeah.
there's a reason.
There's no spirit because there isn't something to unify it as a theme. For example, if you want to make
there's
something
not something
from
universal.
Yeah, not only universal. For example, I'll tell you, if you're making Western, it's ingredients together. The music aligns with the visual, aligns with the spirit of Texas or whatever, right? Or the cowboy style. This is a theme by itself. Now imagine if you have Western with someone from New York, and then someone from, I don't know, Philadelphia or whatever, and then someone from Canada, and you try to make it in a story, but then it's not supported by that unified music that puts all the theme, all ingredients together.
What the Western is about somebody from leaving human society behind and going out and testing moral boundaries out in the great unknown and finding out what moral boundaries are. That's universal. It has nothing to do with New York or Chicago or Texas or anything. It's about humanity and moral boundaries and social structures and getting loose from them. That's something universal. That's why it's sold.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Is Lawrence of Arabia an Arabian Western?
I was going to bring up Lawrence of Arabia. Sorry. I think I cut you off, but...
No, it's fine. I'm saying not necessarily just the story, because the story exists. It's the soul that adds more to it. By soul, I mean the theme itself. So, for example, when you say Texas, and this is the type of the story, it's authentic to where Texas people are from.
Yes, but to me, that's surface dressing.
Correct. But what adds that soul to it is the setting of the desert, or the setting of the cowboy, the music.
It adds flavor.
Exactly. So I'm saying in those pan-Arab ones, they don't have the flavor.
Right.
They have the ingredients, they have the story, they have everything, but the flavor is not there because you're not connecting with any side. You have the story, but because you're not seeing pure authenticity in it, though the story is valid, but the flavor is not there. That's why they didn't succeed much.
And Lawrence of Arabia is a story about a guy who's trying to find out where he fits in, and he doesn't fit in anywhere, and he finally just drives his motorcycle into a wall. And I'm sorry to ruin it for anyone who's never seen Lawrence of Arabia. Hopefully everybody's seen Lawrence of Arabia, but that's what it's about. It's about somebody who's trying to find the place where they belong, and they can't find it anywhere with anyone.
Isn't that what we are all doing here?
Exactly. That's why everybody loves Lawrence of Arabia. Even people who find the historical reality problematic. And that's why the Western had to change in the cop show, because the historical reality was problematic. But nobody cared about that, really. They cared about the human spirit myth at the core.
Yeah.
And that's what has to be found to make a product people want.
Yeah. Sometimes as a filmmaker with clients here, is that it can be so specific on the details in terms of continuity, wardrobe. There's all of this focus on things that aren't so relevant to the story. and then you watch Steven Spielberg and Indiana Jones, there's no continuity in those shots at all. But you're glued into it and you're engaged, and you forgive all of that. And I
Absolutely,
think that's something that we could.
And I think that's what you're saying, that they're focusing on the details and they're losing that core that's going to make people actually care about the details.
Or sometimes not just the details, sometimes the authenticity and the spirit of it to connect actually with it rather than just keeping it general.
Do you think that, though, if you were to take that example and let's say it's a great story, great production, and then export it out of the region to New Zealand or the States or France, who won't understand the backgrounds of those people and the connections, they're just focused on the story, would that be a way that we could
I'll
get
tell you a
around it?
surprising thing. I would trust having only Syrian drama alone or Egyptian drama alone to be exporting culture more than the Pan-Arab to be an exporting culture. Though the Pan-Arab is more focused on the human in general, while Syrian might be more about Syrian society, Syrian thing. But because you dive deeper in it, right? You're going vertical. You're diving vertical rather than horizontal and keeping it surface level to combine all these nationalities together. While if you have Syrian drama alone, for example, you would go to the real depth core of the society and the drama and the complexity of it. That's where the flavor comes from. And that's why I say that when you make it more of Pan-Arab, you're not diving deeper in these stories. You're keeping it more about their interaction.
Skimming the surface.
Yes, exactly.
To try to please everybody and you wind up pleasing nobody.
100%. And it doesn't reflect reality as well. While if you take each society alone, it would be reflecting reality. That's why I say it will have soul in it.
Yeah, I know we keep coming back to backgrounds.
It's the best story right now. Why not?
It's a great example of a creator owning the IP, the concept and everything, and building the lore and the universe that he's got there himself, so that when it comes to the film itself, he's the biggest authority.
Exactly.
No one can question him.
Disney, I'm sure Disney doesn't learn any lessons, but the lesson it should have learned with what it did with Star Wars is that George Lucas was that franchise. And without him guiding the ship, it's a mechanism that broke down. Nobody needs it, nobody wants it. And that's all it is, a mechanism that broke down. The story has to have a captain driving, a soul driving it. And any franchise needs that creator to really endure.
So coming back to your point, I think that actually, if you maybe that's the new way or the evolved way of these directors and storytellers, is for them to be the writer directors, own that, have an authority on it, so that they can build an authentic world. So that whenever anyone ever questions it, to say, oh, you've got to have diversity and so on. Well, no, but that's not my vision for it, because I totally get the world and understand
100%. So the execution wasn't proper because they had to follow the trend of combining these things rather than having a particular vision that they can actually author. Usually off topic, but I can't keep this thought to myself.
You like chocolate.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't eat chocolate for a while. Okay. No, usually they say how there's how you define a good host by giving a space to the guest to speak more.
Oh God, that makes me the worst host in the planet.
No. For now, I see Rory is a great guest because he's giving us so much space to talk. Because I don't think we've ever talked that much in any of the episodes, right?
It's a good conversation.
Yeah.
I wish we could wrap it up with, and this is the product, and now go out and sell it.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're looking for. Isn't
All
it?
right. Well, I don't know if this is the right place to announce it. It's not necessarily something to announce, but there is something that I am working on to develop. It's in development, so I cannot talk too much about it. But there are talks potentially of a platform to help develop storytellers and stories. And then that platform would then culminate with a summit specifically on storytelling, film being a major part. But all along while those stories are being developed, they're then shown at the summit along with other storytellers from around the world.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is exactly the type of initiatives, as in like leading something to start with. Why did you keep this for so long?
Because it's irrelevant.
You could have stayed
It's my dream. It's my dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So when can we get more details?
I can't say yet.
We can start
Man
by
of
next
mystery.
season. First episode is when we get the detail from
we are
Rory.
available.
Yeah.
Planting the seed, though.
Yeah.
No, that would be amazing, and so needed here. It would be
Well,
great.
the biggest support that I could get is from people attending and going to it, because then that shows interest, and then we can build it from there.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Can't think of a better place to end it on, right? Are we professionals or what? I knew it was coming.
He was so ready. Like once you looked at him, he immediately put the music.
No, please shut up.
Was that synced or? Okay.
Rory, thank you so much for being on the show and helping us wrap up season 1 of Crossroads. Dima, thank you for
Thank
being
you so much.
the world's greatest co-host.
Oh wow, this big compliment.
We are Crossroads
Yeah.
at Mira Business FM in collaboration with Middlesex University Dubai.
Thank you
Look
so
for
much.
us on Spotify, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all the podcast platforms.
And thank you so much, David. Thank you so much. It was like a great season. Looking forward to the next one.
Bigger and better. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.